All right. What's up, everybody? How you doing out there? Welcome back to the show. This is last week's fights. My name is Thinker St. James, and tonight we are going to be going over each and every fight from UFC Fight Night, Cejudo versus Song, talking a little bit about Ilia Toporia's vacation of the featherweight belt, and taking a look at this week's fight night, which is Manel Kape versus Asu Almabayev. And to do all of that with me, as always, the Ohio player, my co-host, a man who conceivably has two working eyes, Chase Parton. How you doing, brother?
I will tell you guys today, you won't know, but it has been anything less than a doozy. It is, but I can tell you two things. One, the fights were good. So it was a good fucking weekend, and Mondays are Mondays. And two, this passing thought that I wanted to throw in really quick is that this stream that we do right here is perfect, for what we have, because when you go to the watch-alongs, it's a vibe of what greed does to man. And when you come here, this is the level-headed talk of everything that we've picked up and all the memes gathered. This is a good one for all, and I'm just very happy to be here. And I'm, another week for another praise to the Thinker St. James for running this show like he does, man.
Hey, much appreciated, man. I did hear from some of the viewers that jump between our watch-alongs that you were not doing too well on yours. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, that's why I brought it up, is because if you go to my watch along, it would look like, and you may believe, that I had no fun during this card. But when you talk about what actually happened in reality, I mean, you can't be mad at the results, because every time I went, like there was some reaction, it really had me on my feet. Like this was great.
Yeah, understood. Well, fair enough. We'll get into all of it here as we go. So, as usual, if you are in the chat and you want to talk about something that does not pertain to the fights that we are talking about at the moment, throw it in there and we will come back to it, because we're going to be going over each and every one of the fights from this card. This card being, of course, UFC Fight Night, Cejudo versus Song, which took place at the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington. Chase, you already kind of said it, but initial thoughts on this card?
Well, initial thoughts, before the card, obviously, I was thinking that, on paper, you have a lot of killers, and I did not expect them to be killers on the night. And historic run, really, for Seattle. You can't really, I don't know if there's any that really compare with as many things that happened, in succession, I guess. We'll get into it, of course.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was one of those deals. I think it was Checkmate who posted it. So shout out to Checkmate Entertainment. But it was like the meme of the horse drawing, where it's like it starts out as like a really well drawn horse and then like gets progressively like more cartoonish. It was kind of what I think the assessment was. But that being said, the well drawn parts of this horse were very well drawn. I mean, it was a very entertaining card. The prelims were really where it's at. Never, ever miss the prelims. And, even the ones going on towards farther down into the main card were good. And, of course, we'll talk about the main event, which there's a lot to talk about. So let's jump into it. Let's start off with the first fight of the evening, which was Modestas Bukauskas versus Rafael Sequeira. What did you think about this fight, sir?
Well, first, I am an idiot for ever thinking that Modestus is going to ever get to the bell. This dude's a fucking 10. Second, that, initially going into it, Rafael, the finish that, fellow member on the card, Ibo Aslan, had on him, I was thinking it was a little fluky. Ibo at the time was a machine, so this was a good lock for me to bet on decision. I figured it was going to not be some fluke finish, but other than that, there was no fluke to it. Yeah, no, Modestus made sure he put him in the dirt on this one. It was crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the note that I have about it, and I'm really glad that they said it on the commentary, is that we forget 9 previous knockouts for Modestas Bukauskas. He's got good power, sub ability as well. He was coming off of 2 submissions before that. Well-rounded in his second stint in the UFC, it would seem, and another knockout to it. So now 10. I mean, this was a really nice thing to see, because my initial thought was as well that it was like, wow, I was not expecting a knockout from Modestas Bukauskas, but it's like he's had a good couple of them prior to this.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a major miscalculation, and it wasn't me trying to say that he wasn't going to get close to a finish or, knock him out. But I really thought that Mr. Rafael was going to have a better game plan once he started to get hit, especially in his last matchup with Ibo Aslan, where he just took shots and just never decided to either punch back or defend himself in a different way. This one, he did punch back a little better. I'll give him that. But he obviously is just not a striker. I mean, I know these are some pretty good dudes that he's going up against, but I think this is where the matchmaking is thinking, okay, styles make matchups. If we got a really good striker, the other guy's got to do something else kind of deal. Like, he's getting knocked out every time. So I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that Modestas had a solid game plan or at least a solid mentality, because he kept the pressure on early, because he was right up in Sequeira's face for like the majority of this thing. And like you said, I mean, Sequeira did throw a couple of decent shots. There were good shots from both of them a little earlier on in the fight, but Bukauskas kept that same pressure on throughout all of that. So walking through the fire, letting himself, take one to give one, left hook lands, and that was the end of the story. I guess Sequeira is a little bit chinny, as you've been saying here. The pair of knockouts now are not a good look for him, but better in this fight than the last one. Does that really make that much of a difference, though?
No, not too much. He's probably on his way out. It is Monday, so we probably would have seen the cut by now. So I can't really say that, but it's not a good look. It's a good idea to change the game plan, because I mean, they may not give you a superior striker like you've been going against, but I will give it to you. You had some good moments against Bukauskas. Like, I will say that I regretted the decision instantly, because you were willing to trade, and he was also willing to go in there and throw these meaty fucking paws. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not really trying to rag on him, but Modestus just, his textbook, bro. He just walked him down, took the shots. I mean, he obviously watched some film and said, "Okay, I'm gonna do exactly what happened there. He's not gonna finish me. I'm gonna finish him." And these ones, it's like, isn't an experience thing that he prepped for that. That was the game plan and he followed through. Yeah, but this is just a good old slugfest right here, and Bukauskas won.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that you're exactly right. It was good to hear him say that he had watched film. And I mean, granted, based on the way that the fight played out, it's like, it's not like there was a massive puzzle to unlock. This wasn't like a crazy riddle that he had to solve. But look, sometimes the shortest distance is the straight line, right? I mean, you follow the plan as it's laid out, and he did just that, and it made sense. So really, just like you said, textbook is a great way to put it. This was a really just a solid go in there, do your thing, and get out, and he did exactly that. So good way to start this card off. It was definitely unexpected. I mean, this is first fight of the night, and everybody's just kind of getting settled in. It's we're getting ready. We're listening to all the stats about the event and stuff. They're saying, oh, it's been over 12 or nearly 12 years since the last time the UFC has been in Seattle, all this kind of stuff. And, it's like, yeah, everybody's like starting to get ready. And then all of a sudden you're seeing the first of what we now know to be many knockouts. So a good way to get this thing going.
Well, and so I guess I will mention now, and we can maybe get it out the way, because there's not much to say else about a lot of these fights. And, obviously there's a lot going on, but there was just not a lot of time where there was opposition kind of deal in a lot of these. That's per se. And I will also give credit to the UFC. The pacing, they did really fucking good, especially with how many, finishes there were. They really were on their A game with it. They had like a 15-minute table with Chiesa and whoever the fuck else. But either way, it was good on their part. And this was one of the first ones where we milked it a little bit, but there's not much to say about a lot of these, and we can get into the next one especially because I think the first round of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I got notes about everything, so there's a couple of talking points here and there, but yeah, these first couple do go pretty quickly, so we'll keep it moving here. Next up is Nursultan Ruziboyev versus Eric Mechanico. Mechanico coming in on 9 days' notice, Ruziboyev on 10 days' notice. He said, "Yeah, what'd you think?"
I think this one, like I was alluding to, the first round was slow. And I was really upset. I was thinking like, wow, if this is the one that goes to decision, geez, you're making me itch my eye now. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's not something just in my eye for some reason randomly.
All right. And then, so this one was slow to start. The first round, not much happened, like at all. And I was like, wow, are these dudes not going to like really engage much? Like the first 10 seconds is a good gauge, and they weren't given a good sight. And then the second round started, and Ruziboyev really just said, I'm just going to walk right into you. And, what's his name? Mechanico. He did not have a good game plan. It was more shell up and not engage too much. And short notice, what can you do kind of deal. Props to him for even going in there with a killer. And then Ruziboyev just put the hands on him, put him to the mat a couple times. And yeah, this actually had me really excited because, man, Ruziboyev is going to finish cans. That's really exciting to see.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is tough to say. This is a dude basically getting called up from out of nowhere, slot filler, as we had said in the previous episode of the show. A lot of changes to this card, a lot of fights that got moved and opponents that got changed and fights that got canceled. It was a big kind of jumble to get to the finish line with this card in the order and the roster that we ended up with. So, Mechanico getting the big call up on pretty short notice here to do his thing. I mean, I think that what the issue was, and this is kind of an unfortunate set of circumstances, right? So Mechanico, as I just said, coming in on short notice and new to the organization, he was fighting very evasively in round one, obviously apprehensive to engage. So it was a slow round because of that. And Ruziboyev landed like a smattering of hands and kicks, just a little touch here and there. Round two, both guys had more urgency. It was urgency on both sides. I think that Mechanico's corner, sadly to his detriment, was like saying, hey, you got to go out there and actually bring the fight to this guy. So, good for him for listening to his corner. Did not necessarily work out the best for him. Fitzgerald on commentary was saying how Mechanico's coach is telling him to bring the fight to Ruziboyev. Obviously, Mechanico is a good listener, but the game plan didn't play out as hoped. And that's really what ended up being the killer there, because he got caught with that one shot from Ruziboyev, who is massive, by the way, at middleweight, 6'5" as a middleweight, definitely a larger dude. And you could see the difference because Mechanico is not small himself. So two big guys for the class. And that shot that caught him was just a sneaky right hand, like almost on the forehead, not really to the temple. It was more to like the front of the forehead, splitting the guard to do so. I was like, that's a really nice shot that caught him. And that delayed reaction was pretty, it was unfortunate to see, but it was a little odd at first. Like when you first noticed, like, oh, he's going down. Like it was like, it took a second for his body to catch up with him, but he ended up tumbling after that and dogged pursuit from Ruzaboyev to finish the fight.
Yeah, he was flopping around like a fish for a minute. It was kind of an interesting finish because he probably got from one side of the cage to the other and then even got to another side of the cage. Like there was 2 knockdowns and he was slipping and it was interesting. But yeah, the second round, honestly, I thought it was maybe I missed it. I thought it was the translator saying you got to bring it to him on Ruzaboev's end because maybe it wasn't, but here's my view of it. If it was, it's like Ruzaboev, he was letting, Eric just do nothing. And Ruzaboev was, walking him down, but he wasn't solving the puzzle in its first round. But like now the coach is letting him know, like, okay, now it's time to kick it into gear. And Ruzaboev just went in there a little more aggressive and, put him down. It was his finishes are always so weird. I don't know, like the Cedricus Dumas one, like this one wasn't weird. Obviously, it was absolutely clean, 33 seconds. But gosh, he makes people look goofy. It's funny. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, in either way, it's like, but regardless of who, obviously both guys in the second round realized that first round was a feeler round, whether or not they meant it to be, that's what it ended up becoming. So it was like, hey, somebody's got to really win this round here. And then Ruzaboev just was able to make it the finishing round, which is exactly what you want to do. So, props to him, making people look a little silly, out there ice skating. That's mark of a good, a good performance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, for real. Like this dude, look, Uzbekistan, they got you a good guy. If they can not have him face Joaquin Buckley again, I mean, that guy, obviously he's on his way up. So if Ruzaboev's short of Buckley, who's he above right now? We really got to find out. And he's kind of active, I feel. So I've watched him a few different times. So Ruzaboev might be out there. And, short notice stuff, he's willing to go in there whenever it seems. So
for sure. Yeah. I mean, and regardless of the activity within the UFC, you cannot fault this man for not taking a fight, considering that he is now 35-9-2. I mean, this dude is, he is a veteran in every sense of the word, regardless of his age,
I mean, listen, what's his name? Yoel Alvarez? Listen, it's the same deal, kind of. I think Ruzaboev, kind of slight dark horse if you really squint your eyes, but this was a good finish. I don't know what's next for him. Hopefully it's not a short notice but if it is, I'll probably watch, and I probably won't think that after. Actually, it's funny because after the first fight I said, oh, surely we're getting a decision now, guys, because we don't get back-to-back finishes like we used to. And this is maybe where I felt stupid. I felt very, very dumb later, and that's about every fight after it. So it's just crazy. Ruzaboev, he's that guy.
Yeah, well, and also, I'd said that he's a pretty massive dude. I mean, if he was fighting Buckley, that was at welterweight, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, if that's the case and he can make that weight, then, he's even more massive for that weight class. And I think on the watch along, someone had asked, and I was like, I mean, you could feed him to Colby and see if Colby gets the one being fed. I mean, that to me would be perfectly fine. Somebody's got to get Colby the fuck out of here at some point, like once and for all. So I mean, with the way that he's been doing his deal right now, it certainly wouldn't be the worst matchmaking in the world, in my opinion.
I mean, they both lost to Buckley in their previous fight before Saturday, so who's to say it's far off,
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. But good deal for him, and continuing on with the finishes that just seem to never end here, at least on the prelims. Moving on to the next fight is Nikolai Veretennikov versus Austin Vanderford. Austin, Mr. Van Zant Vanderford. What'd you think?
Dude, this fight, this is the exact reason why you don't look at the stats and the name of people before they come into a fight, because everything that I heard was this Nicolau dude was something to behold. They even said knockout. I know it's short notice, on like 4 days or whatever it is, something like, maybe it's not this one. Another fight might have been 4 days, but But this one, holy shit. Talk about it wasn't an upset maybe on the sports books because it was definitely like even when they came in there because nobody really knew. But talk about an upset to everybody when they saw how tragic Nicolau is out about everything in the sport of mixed martial arts.
Bro.
Holy shit. He only knows how to throw meaty hooks and lay on his back and then thumbs up to the ref. Like it's about those three in his arsenal. His weapon wheel is very, very limited. And dude, it was brutal. Like this looked like somebody that I would say, oh, they're feeding him a can. Like, and then that's, that was what happened kind of deal. But like Nicolau, you made yourself look so bad. And I don't know if you want to make your rant first about what happened at the end. So I'll actually let you go because we'll talk about what happened at the end.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously we'll definitely get to that, but yeah, I mean, this was essentially a pick 'em. So I'm not too mad at myself for choosing incorrectly on this, basically what you're getting at. But this Veretennikov guy is not it in the slightest, dude. Good Lord. I mean, like, so, you know, basically the ground game for him not fucking non-existent. I mean, first round takedown, and he was kept down for a long time. I mean, Vanderford had good activity on top. Elbows opened Veretennikov's forehead up. Body shots, good work on top. So it's not like it was a lay and pray situation from Vanderford. But this dude, I mean, it was just there was nothing doing for him. So like by the second round, he's still overcommitting to those long range shots. You are so right about the throwing meaty hook shit. I mean, when you're the wrestling, like if the wrestling is coming for you from the other side and you have nothing to counter it whatsoever, how are you still throwing those reaching shots like that? You are asking to be taken down, which is exactly what Veretennikov got from Vanderford. I mean, then when he's inevitably on his back, he ends up nearly on top of the chain link. He was on the fence. If you look at the finishing sequence, his back is essentially pressed up to the chain link almost, makes no attempt to get up in the slightest, does nothing to get out of the way of the elbows or hammer fists, then has the audacity to be upset at the stoppage. What the fuck is this guy on, bro?
No, this was so funny. What made it even funnier is the finish. So like we've seen a lot of people when they're getting punched and they're like, I'm okay. Like, like Izzy, of course, he's one of them. But like this dude, he was like trying to, shed the punches. So he was just going up and down with them. Like,
Yep.
And like he did that for about 30 seconds. And the ref is looking at him like, yo, retard, like you gotta do something.
Something.
Yeah, and then gets mad that the ref stopped it, and not only was mad at the ref, but he walks across the cage and shoves Austin Vanderford in the back. And I don't know if you caught it, but Paul Felder was like, well, and then there goes your UFC job, so like that's how that works. And like it was like really funny. I'm like, wow, that is like a UFC roster kind of guy, like he would know. So I guess Nicolau, goodbye, buddy. Like, see you in PFL.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point to all of this because I said the same thing actually. Like, independent of Felder, I was like, yeah, that's a quick, easy way to get yourself cut, especially when you're just coming in. I mean, like, this is your time to show what you're about. And if this is what you're about, generally, that's going to look pretty bad to the higher ups. But from what I had heard, at least, Dana did not seem too upset by it. I don't know if he's going to get booked again or not, but it was a little surprising to me because I thought that was going to be the immediate reaction too. I was like, oh, I could already hear Dana saying in the post-fight press conference, oh, this guy's going to go over there and push his opponent after the bell. I mean, get this guy out of here. He's not right for the organization, that kind of thing. But apparently he didn't say that. So who knows if he'll end up coming back, but it's like when you have that on top of the performance, I mean, I couldn't imagine you asking this guy to come back. Who are you going to put him up against? I mean, a pure striker in every sense of the word. And then you just got to hope that those long range shots that he throws maybe lands. You know who he could go up against is fucking Chaos Williams based on his last performance. You know what I mean?
No,
like someone.
you're not seeing the vision. So Dana this is where his vendettas come in. He will have this guy. He might be on like a 2-fight deal, if not already a 1, and then he's never coming back. But if he's on a 2-fight deal, Dana remembers this, right? And he's gonna put him up against some killer. And you know why I say this? Because the dude, the Tululan guy, right? That's, I don't know why Dana hated him, but he threw him up against every killer in the book, basically, and just let him get finished until he left it. Like, hey, Nicolau, you better watch yourself when there's a dude coming up and he's a straight up monster, and you see this Nicolau dude go up against him, you better slam. It might be a minus 1500, but like, finish, dude. You got to go for it. Nicolau's terrible.
Yeah, very, very bad. And I mean, really, it's hard to lay too much praise on Vanderford. I mean, like, I want to like give
He
him.
looked like fucking John Jones out there, bro.
But that's my point. Exactly. I mean, that's the point, though, is that like when you have a guy that's like doing what Nicolau is doing here, you know, what Veretennikov is doing, then it's like, yeah, it's, you know, if you have relatively passable ground skills, then yeah, you're going to look like John Jones out there. So it's like, I mean, like, look, he seems like a good guy. I didn't know much about Austin Vanderford before this fight. So like, I didn't really know what to expect from him. The only thing that I knew is that he was Mr. Paige Van Zant. So, you know, he seems like an okay dude. The ground skills certainly looked there from what we did see. So I'm not like trying to dog on him, but I would like to see him up against a dude who's going to give him a little bit more of a technically proficient challenge in order to fully assess the skills going forward if he's going to stick around, which it looks like he wants to and probably will. So.
Well, and so I think, you know, back to the comparison I made with Tululan, if you look at, you know, Christian Leroy Duncan, I believe that was a short notice bout as well. You know, if you get somebody who's clearly not on your level, you fucking finish them. What can you say about Austin Vanderford that's not like great? Like, I mean, it's a short notice bout that you don't really know much about your opponent, but when you get in there, you clearly see he's not on your level, and fucking finish that. Like, he's a bum. Like, you get him out of there. It probably should have happened in the first, seeing what we saw, but like, he noticed that he had an advantage. It wasn't that he had a disadvantage in the striking, but he just knew, like, okay, let me not be dumb and get caught by the meaty hook merchant. Let me go take him down and rain fucking elbows. Dude, I don't know. I think we're getting to the era where elbows are more utilized widespread throughout the sport, but like, it makes me mad sometimes when they do the ground and pound and they're trying to punch their arms. It like, yo, smash the whole forearm, like, on these dudes' cranium. Like, it's a lot more surface too. Like, you got big hands. You're not a bullet out here. You can't fit through their, you know, everything, you know, whatever. I think Austin Vanderford, hey, listen, if they don't want to give you props, if Thinker's out here hating,
No, I don't want to give the impression that I'm trying to hate on the guy. All I'm saying is that it's just it's hard when that's the level of competition you're getting back. But no, I mean, you are right though. You make a very good point. The you know, what you do in this circumstance is finish the fight. He did do that. Got to give the guy the props for that. In the watch along and here in the chat now too, I did want to throw up this point that Anakin is making, because he did say that Vanderford is a little chinny, and the only 2 losses that he has on his record are both knockout losses. So that's just something to keep in mind, you know, kind of file away in your memory banks for future reference. But it's going to be interesting to see somebody who, again, is going to be a little bit more technically proficient, navigates the fight a little bit more effectively, and maybe is able to touch his chin a little bit more. See if that ends up coming into play.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is obviously a concern that he didn't want to stand striking with the dude who's god awful. Like, where did he learn anything? Like, seriously, anything in the striking department? He didn't learn wrestling, clearly. But anyway, you know, another story for another day. But Austin Vanderford, I'm not saying he's going to win his next matchup, but like, in this performance, like, for a guy that was on the Contender Series, like, you know, going back, I was just double checking for a guy that was on the Contender Series like a while back in his career, right? And back in 2018, and he didn't even make the cut. For this is the performance that you put on when you have the opportunity. And again, when somebody's not on your fucking level,
Yeah, do the damn thing. Exactly. You're 100% right. No, that point is completely valid, and Vanderford certainly did exactly that. So yeah, got to give the guy credit there, and to his credit as well. Just to give him a little bit more praise than I might have been. After the fact, I did see a couple of quotes that were going around about his thoughts as to the pushing situation and all of that. And he was pretty gracious about the whole thing. He was like, yeah, I understand it's this guy's dream too. I get it. It's, the tensions are high. He a lot of emotion at the time, that kind of thing. He basically just said, yeah, I mean, you should have just done it in the fight. And I think that that's the exact right thing to say. So I really don't have a lot of negative to say about Vanderford, like in totality. I'm just saying that, like, if you're strictly going off of like the test in front of you, then I'd like to see him get tested a little bit harder. But thankfully now he's going to stick around, so that conceivably will happen. So, good job to take the fight to a dude who obviously you knew you could beat, and he did just that. So yeah, praise to Austin Vanderford. I didn't want to make it sound like I was hating on the guy.
Listen, I also know that this is not necessarily part of the show, but the audience may love this bit. Not bit, but this part of it. This is the first of 2 white men with shags on the card. I don't know if you know what that hairstyle is. I guess that is the terminology that I've been told it is.
This is the ingrown mullet that I'm looking at from Vanderford.
Yes, the buzz and then the poof in the back. This is one of 2. I don't know if you noticed, Nick Klein also has the same thing, and we'll get into his. His is a little different.
It was a 50-50 on the hairstyle then, huh?
Listen, yeah. So Austin Vanderford, I'm not saying I love it. The bald and then the shag out, I'm not saying I love it. I wanted to get your thoughts on it, actually. That's why I brought it up.
Well, yeah, I didn't realize that it actually had its own name. I thought that it was just an unkept mullet, and I believe on the watch along I did comment on it and saying that it was too much party in the back, too much business up front.
Beeb knows all. The drop shag. There you go.
Drop shag. Yeah, yes, this is new to me.
Okay, listen, you're getting hip. This is the new age.
Well, yeah,
he must be really in with some area. I don't know where he's from, but like he's either like he's with it. That's what I'm saying. I
guess so. Yeah. I mean, look, I personally thought that it was like 2 clashing styles that didn't complement each other very well. But if that's what's in, and I mean, look, he's rocking with Paige Van Zandt, so obviously he's doing something right.
True. So, hey, listen, Nick Klein, you might have a chance somewhere, brother. Anyway, we'll get to him later.
For sure. But yeah, anything else on Vanderford, his hairstyle, or Veretennikov and his awfulness?
No, yeah, he's pretty bad. We can move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that should be the final note about this fight, is that Veretennikov needs to get the fuck out of here, and we will leave it at that. Moving on to another hairstyle that worked out pretty well. Blonde Ricky Simone, new mythical fighter unlocked. Ricky Simone versus Javid Basharat. Wow, what a knockout this was. Put this on the knockout of the year list. One of the potentials anyway. I'm keeping a running list this year of all of our year, for our year-end wrap-up, and had to include this one. What'd you think of Ricky Simone here?
Yeah, you speak of the hairstyle. We'll get into it. If you look at the dude in the picture right here, this is not the killer that entered the cage. Ricky Simone, wow, did I not believe that it was going to happen? Because his last performances, granted, they were against very good opponents, but his last performances, I did not think that he was going to bring the same level. I thought they were going to wrestle, I'm not going to lie. And why they didn't, why Javid Basharat, why you did not wrestle, brother, I will never know. Maybe you thought you had the edge, but everybody gets caught. It ain't the worst thing in the world. But like, there have been a lot of people saying they do not trust the Basharats, and I can't lie, I've seen him lose twice now, and I thought he was going to be one of those dudes where you get one not fluke, but you get an early loss, and then you progress. And why I had that faith, honestly, I can't tell you. It's just I want to see people from, again, these areas that are not represented a lot. I want to see somebody have the dream and the confidence and the skill and the drive to do it. And the Basharat's maybe not the other one. I'm not going to speak ill on him yet, if whatever happens, but this one right here, yeah, if Ricky Simone is just gonna catch you with the hashtag Toby community parlay lock, I mean, you're just cooked, brother. Like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ricky Simone, like the much like the Ruzaboev performance, I was thinking early in this fight, Ricky is not scared in the slightest of this dude. Record and reputation, or whatever, the aura that these Basharats may or may not have, played zero part in how Ricky was navigating this fight, because he was right in Basharat's face from the start of this thing. Found the groove early through the pressure he was creating. I mean, he was really pressure fighting in the early parts of this thing, not letting Basharat have too much room to navigate. I mean, you were talking about Basharat not wrestling. I think that might have been part of it. The speculation, of course, but like when you've got your opponent right in your face, not really giving you the real estate to navigate the cage very effectively, it wasn't like, I mean, you can try to shoot for a double right up in, at close range like that, but you're basically asking to get negated in trying to do that. So, unless you can somehow catch the timing so that you get it like right on an off movement or something, and it's just like one of those like straight up and down kind of situations, I think that Ricky, like, the pressure was just a really effective tool for him. And that's why I feel like I might be slightly broken record occasionally when I say like, oh, good pressure. It's like, oh, what does that mean? Or like, why is that important? This is why that's important. Like, to me, I feel like if you come out of the gate pressuring the opponent in a very real way early in the fight, then good things can happen. I mean, sometimes you get caught too. It is MMA, but like, if you are going in there showing that you're taking control, it, at least in a small way for certain fights, it's a partially mental component, and then also like on both sides, it's partially mental for you. You're feeling like you're dictating the pace, and partially mental for your opponent. Like, oh, this guy's he's not backing down from shit. So I thought that looked really good for him. And obviously it worked out here because Ricky Simone murdered this man. And real quick, just to finish off the thought, this was such a perfect 1-2 setup that made this happen. The left hook baits the encounter, the straight right follows, and his fist went sailing through Basharat's jaw.
Yeah, I always like to give my dad's point of view on some of these, because I show him the really good ones when it has to happen, and it's a fight night especially. I show him some, and his initial thought was, he didn't need to hit him after the fact. And I love just, man, you guys just don't understand. Like, yeah, he did have to do that. That's exactly what Ricky Simone needed to do to solidify that he is back, blonde hair and better than ever. I'm actually on the Ricky Simone train, Toby. You are the fucking man. I honestly owe you everything in my checkbook, because you just know you have the script, and Ricky Simone is clearly on the winning path in 2025. And I dig it if he's going to be the blonde hair, don't care kind of guy. So
yeah, absolutely. Like I said, new mythical fighter unlocked, Ricky with the blonde. I mean, I thought that if we're talking mullets, in a more traditional sense, I thought that the mullet that he used to have actually kind of worked for him. It sort of fit his face, and the style kind of was clicking for him. But if the blonde is working, then the blonde is working, and you cannot go against the tide when you get a knockout like that. So yeah, I have to say I was slightly proud of myself. We'll talk about the Rob Font John Matsumoto fight in a little while, but 2 underdogs on the long shot parlay together, and that paid for all of my bets for this card. So thank you very much, Ricky Simone.
this is maybe where I started to lose money, because obviously after Modestus did not go to decision, this was the fight where I was like, no way is it not going to decision. We've had, what is it, we've had 3 finishes. There's no way we're getting 4 in a row, surely, especially knockouts. Like, come on, like, who are these guys? Well, Ricky Simone made sure that I will remember the fucking name. If anybody's going to remember anybody's name in this goddamn league, it is Ricky Simone now, because he took everything. Not yet, but this was the start of everything being taken. Little did I know. So it was rough, but he's a
Yeah.
god. I'm not going to lie.
Well, and I think the problem with Simone, unfortunately, is that he does, at least as of his current dynamics, he's one of those guys that he can do great things, but he can't always do great things when it matters the most and against the guys who are just at that elite level that he's not been able to reach himself. So hopefully this is the turn the corner moment for him. I mean, you see the record, now 21-6. He's certainly been around for a while. He has a lot of cage time. It's kind of going to get to a point of being a now or never situation for him. Hopefully this is the now part of that. And, he can continue on moving up and making it happen for himself, because we have seen him get up to higher level competition and just fall short. So, I want to believe, I certainly did in this situation, paid off here. Going forward against some of these guys who are going to be a little bit higher up the ladder, I'd be a little bit more cautious, but that's for a different day. That ain't today. Ricky Simone did the job.
Follow me here. Ricky
Yes.
Simone, he threw less than 30 shots, 29. Isn't it impressive? And me personally, I can't tell you much more than like some feeler punches. Okay, it says there was a takedown. I don't really remember a minute of control time. Maybe they were, anyway. But like more of the striking nonetheless. I can't tell you there was some great sequences that were, grand sequences, I guess I'll say. There was maybe some moments, but like up until the moment it happened, like Ricky Simone was able to do the job in just one combination. And it's just, listen, we go back to technical and technique. It's like, it's textbook what Ricky Simone did. Show the two, bang the three, whatever it's called. It was really good. And he didn't just do it. He put him in the dirt. I mean, it was beautiful.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I mean, that was a gone till November knockout. And I mean, you saw it took a while for Basharat to get back on his feet. Was glad to see him able to, stand for the ring announcements and whatnot, but it took a minute. He was, he was seeing stars. He was looking up towards the heavens.
Yeah, that's actually what made it even worse, is like his eyes weren't closed, they were just looking straight up in the air. Like and then you would look in the replay and he's like kind of out, and then he hits him again and then he's looking up, like, so it kind of like really fucked with him, and then he's laying there. And then he's he's saying what happened. And I guess they just wouldn't tell him, or maybe he's obviously not able to fucking comprehend and
Oh
hear
yeah,
anything, So he kept asking what happened, but like, I understand. You don't know where you're at, what's going on. Good thing he
yeah,
was able to make it, because he laid there for a while, but he
for
was
sure.
conscious after, we knew he was alive, kind of deal. This wasn't a Bryce Mitchell situation.
Yeah.
This was still good. I think maybe I'm just like anyway, when it comes to like these smaller guys, they're obviously very skinny. The way that his spine was like looking through his like skin when he got knocked out, and like you can just it just makes it gruesome. I'm not gonna lie. This sport is just, it's crazy sometimes.
It is indeed. I mean, violence is what we come for.
Oh,
So
listen, I loved it. I'll tell you that. Not that I loved losing money, because I did not. We'll get into the next one where I started to lose more, but it's a good one.
yeah, for sure. Well, let's move on to the next one here, because if you said that you lost money on this one, I'm hoping that it was based on it not going to decision, because this is Mansour Abdul Malik versus Nick Klein. And I mean, we had the discussion in the Discord. Mansour is beastly, and I am not gonna lie. I mean, this was there were a couple of moments in this fight that were a little bit concerning, but job done at the end of the day nonetheless.
I think, again, this fight came up and I'm like, wow, absolutely no way we're going to get another finish in a row. So clearly this has to go to decision. I did not personally put money on it. I was just kidding. But other ones I did personally. This one, I was so unsure of the outcome, because when I watched Nick Klein in the highlights, he's obviously had some subs, and that's good. When you look at the score, his profile, those were obviously like long ago. I think he maybe even he got one in the Contender Series, I think, too. That was his other one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And he didn't seem like anybody you could count out, from what they were showcasing. And that's obviously what you got to thrive on sometimes when you're watching the promotion. It's like, what is the story they're telling? I love that part of it. And Nick Klein actually was able to put on a performance of somebody that you couldn't count out up until, obviously the end. The first round of this fight was, you were on your fucking feet. Like there was some fucking tension. Like, is Nick Klein able to beat this fucking monster of a fucking, and there's probably people in the crowd. And if you're on the side of Mansoor, everybody loves an underdog. That's why I'm telling Nick Klein's parts first. But if you're a fan of Mansoor, you're obviously watching this and you're saying he's going to beat this fucking redneck's ass. Like, this is absolutely no fucking contest. But the fact Nick Klein was able to stumble him back and show that Superman can bleed. Listen, I know Mansoor's young. I'm just making jokes. But Nick Klein actually was able to do some good fucking work here for somebody, again, who makes you think that this is just some redneck. He did some work.
Yeah, I mean, and look, when we've talked about this plenty of times, when you've got a minus 1,300 next to your name in Abdul Malik and the spinning back, what ended up being a back elbow, but, a thrown spinning back fist that landed on the elbow has you, stumbling backwards and kind of looking spooked. It's like, oh, okay, now this might be a whole different ball game here. So yeah, no, I definitely think that Klein does deserve his props for that. Both these guys. So I wanted to put a slight addendum to something I'd said on the watch along, because I had said on the watch along that both these guys are coming off the Contender Series. So this was really kind of like a Contender Series 2.0 fight. But that is because I forgot that Abdul Malik had starched Dusko Todorovic last year. So my bad on that one. But it just, the reason that I really wanted to bring that up is to say this dude has already tasted a little bit of the action over here and had a really good performance in that one as well. So a little bit of, I mean, granted, still new, still young, but he's already been slightly tested. I mean, Todorovic, not exactly, it wasn't like the same level that he's going to be facing later on, but it was his first legitimate fight in the organization, handled that pretty well. Klein is coming off of the Contender Series. So it was interesting to see, what is going to happen here, especially based on what you're talking about. Klein with a nice sub game. This is certainly, at least on paper, looking like it was going to be a styles make fights kind of fight. And I mean, it started a little bit slow up until that spinning back fist / elbow landing. And then I think everybody had their holy shit moment at that point. I will say, though, it was a slightly, I don't want to say like low fight IQ, because, you're in the thick of the fight. So you got to do what you're navigating it as you will. But Klein, to not keep going with the hands at that point, because he went right into another clinch situation. Commentary even had said, oh, he's letting him recover. I was like, that's exactly what he's doing. It's like, bro, that was a misstep on your part to not just keep laying on hands at that point, because that was your one shot to really do just that. But Klein kept going to the wrestling well in round 2, which was obviously the move as opposed to striking with Abdul Malik. But eventually Mansoor just said, fuck this, which was one of the funniest moments on this card, was when Mansoor just was like, yo, I am done with this shit. He catches the kick, pushes him the fuck over, and just starts laying down those shots. And it was the same style that he had done in one of his previous fights. I think it was the one on the Contender Series, where he's got the dude on one knee and he's just hammering the side of the head. So obviously, if he can get you doubled over in that position, it's going to be a lights out situation. And that's exactly what it was.
Oh my God, I'm glad you brought it up. Actually, Anakin brought it up first, so I'll give him the credit. If he fumbled the finish. I forgot all about that. When he hit him with the back fist, he got him all the way across the cage, and his striking is looking pretty good. As you noticed by the numbers, his striking wasn't inaccurate. He was, he was landing some good shots, and he was mostly playing some countering. But in that moment, He was doing some good striking. Mansoor, covered up, and he fucking shot a double leg. Oh, you motherfucker. Like, and he's not the only one on this card that did that. We'll get to it later. But like, yeah, Nick Klein, it's the lapse of judgment, in Mansoor, not in the same predicament, but in the moment, the moment to strike, kind of deal. He said, fuck it. I'm going to go, I'm going to flip the switch and we're going to go finish, bro. Like, he's not on my level. That's exactly what probably should have happened in like the first 5, like, seconds of the fight, kind of deal, like an encounter like that on paper, of course. But Mansoor, maybe he just wasn't trusting in his abilities too much. Maybe he was, maybe it was a feel around. Like I said, like, getting to round 2 is not, the second round is all we've been to up until this point, I think. So I know I'm making it seem like these dudes were in a grudge match up to it. It was, but it wasn't as long as some that we've seen. So these guys were still in the danger zone, and Mansoor really was able to put on a really good performance, especially with his size. Like, I know, again, second round, his cardio didn't look like it was fading. Nick Klein was the one who was tired. I think Anakin brought it up first. Nick Klein was the one fading. Mansoor was able to have a good second wind and finish the fucking fight like a fucking, animal. Like, this one wasn't textbook. And I think that's good for Mansoor. He's one of these people that can just make it ugly. I mean, it was a dirty grudge kind of finish, and Nick Klein tried his best. He didn't want to. I don't even think he like went out. I think he just like got to the ground, and then it was kind of ground and pound, and the ref kind of stopped it. But shout out to Nick Klein. Honestly, the hair is maybe some superpowers, because dude, Nick Klein, I'm telling you, the performance that he put on, he had me going for a second, and he didn't even try to sub him once. This was all fucking striking, like this was good.
That certainly is, it does show a level of confidence to go up against a dude who is obviously out here finishing fights, a guy with, noticeable power in his hands. It was not respecting that. I mean, maybe, to his detriment in the end, but, I do give him credit for not just immediately spamming takedown attempts and trying to go for, the clinch situation over and over and over again. I mean, he had a little bit of that, but it wasn't the entire story of the fight. And of course, to be able to land the spinning attack that stumbled him. I mean, this was, even in loss was not a terrible one. So yeah, he does deserve a little bit of credit there, but I am just on the Mansoor Abdul Malik hype train, and I cannot be taken off of it at the moment, man. I'm thinking big things for this guy.
Yeah, see, and it sounds like I'm playing both sides, because like, boy, do I love a Nick Klein performance at this point. But like, at the end of the day, Mansoor was supposed to win. He is the favorite. He was supposed to come out here and knock him out. Did it have to get dirty? Yes. Was he able to win in that regard? Yes. What is next for him? Maybe he bleeds in his next one. We don't know. Maybe it takes a couple more in his next one. But like, how does he respond is what is key. It's not how we feel right now. Like, obviously Mansoor is the fucking king right now. But up until the moment that he's not, that's when we're going to need to see improvement. As of right now, he's so athletic that a lot of things that he just attempts, like, he can be decent at. Like, his wrestling, his grappling defense was fucking amazing. He's 1 for 9 for Nick Klein, and he's a grappler, and he was able to stuff and sprawl out of most of them, and then hobble around. Like, it was impressive. Like, the dude's just gonna be. He's going to be decent at whatever he wants. He can be great if he decides to, like, it's whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't mentally put 2 and 2 together up until this fight, but out there training with Eric Nixick and, the Extreme Couture guys, that's a great place to be for a guy in his position. So, a dude with this basic skill level, this natural ability, I think that they had mentioned that he's coachable as well. He's listening to his team and all that kind of stuff. Got a lot going for him, and doing it with a great camp. I'm telling you, man. I think that the sky might be the limit over here.
Well, Eric Nixick is obviously looking for a new star people, since Sean Strickland is definitely not going to be there anymore, quote unquote. Definitely, I'm sure they'll be fucking hugging next week, type of deal. But
Right. Yeah.
as of right now, Mansoor might be the next guy up. 8 wins. You're still very green, as they say.
Oh, for
So
sure. Yeah, definitely.
it is going to be interesting to see what level of skyrocketing you get, because obviously they wanted to make this fight. They needed this fight to happen. That's why we got Nick Klein. Who knows what's next for him? If it's a big jump in competition, am I worried? No, unless it's somebody like until it's somebody like Robert Whitaker or Jared Cannonier, if he's still going. Anybody like that. Yeah, I think he's good.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, I mean that is the deal. And speaking of, if you go back into the live VODs on my channel, I did an entire video breakdown of the Eric Nixick, Sean Strickland situation, the response to the response from Nixick, so you can hear all of the interesting elements of that one. And my conclusion was the same, that yeah, they'll probably be hugging it out not too long from now, but it is what it is at the moment. So, Mansoor taking up a little bit of that space that's left open, and I mean, either way, there's enough room to go around at Extreme Couture, I'm sure.
I think at this point, I might have mentioned that everybody with a finish should have got a bonus at this point. Like, this is crazy. Like, come on, how would you even decide performance of, fight of the night, performance of the night? Like, they're all just starching their dudes, kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that the justification for not is that a lot of these were flash knockouts earlier, but this one right here was not that. So
these are guys that need the money, though. Like, you see with
yeah.
a short notice fight later on, like Nick Klein, boy, would he have loved a little bonus for putting on for at least doing something, Vanderford or whatever. He obviously would have loved the money on his debut, finally getting into the UFC. Like, this was a historic run. Like, I'm not saying at the moment Dana should have decided, but at the end of the night, he should have been like, okay, everybody gets 10 grand. This was good. They all showed out.
Yeah, for sure.
Here's my left pocket money,
Right. Yeah, this is an unfortunate card to have happened after that little stretch there, the post 300, I'm not doing bonuses anymore kind of thing, or not increasing the bonus amount or whatever. That it's sad that that's the case, but it is what it is in the UFC, and that the boss's word is final. So until he changes his mind, it's just going to be tough noogies for these guys.
Okay, before we move on, actually,
yeah, sure.
Is this shag better than Vanderford's? I know you clearly didn't notice a difference, but they're different. He's got a little higher, and then he's got the curls in the back. I think this is a better look. I'm just saying.
Yes, no, I would agree. Yes, I think that this one is a little bit more acceptable, because I think that the other one is a little bit more overgrown. That's why I had thought that it was like just a mullet that got left by to its own devices a little bit too much. This one seems like it's actually like styled specifically. So I will give it to Klein for this one.
Yeah, shout out him. Listen, one more time. Shout out Nick Klein. Like Anakin said, Klein should bounce back his next fight. I'm really hoping for it. No Ruzaboev bonus. I don't know if that one's crazy. I mean, the dude that he was fighting was pretty bad. But
no,
anyway.
Ricky Simone bonus is the one that's crazier to me. But there's a bunch of craziness when it comes to the bonuses on this card. We'll get to all of that too.
Get into it.
But obviously a fan made out of Chase for Nick Klein. So keep your eyes on.
Up. We are back on the map.
There you go. Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's keep it moving here. We got this one. I mean, was almost kind of open and shut, but it is Andre Fili versus. Is it Melzical? Was that how it was? Melchizel. Yeah, Melchizel Costa. Andre Fili versus Melchizel Costa. Kind of a slow fight. Nice kicks on both sides. Then Fili gets taken down and subbed by the most textbook guillotine of all time. Chase, your thoughts.
Well, again, I'm going to bring it up because I said, surely this is the one that I had 100%. Like, this was the lock of the week. I said, this is going to decision. Andre Fili, whatever. But Costa, oh my gosh, did I ever expect Andre Fili to put his head straight into a guillotine and then tap to it? it was absolutely like when it went to the ground, 30 seconds left. I'm like, whatever it was, I'm good to go. They're just gonna sit here. Andre Fili's, he's good. He can breathe. If he would have his head there, surely he knows what he's doing. But that was just a rookie. You can't even say a rookie mistake. I mean, it's just low because he's not a fucking rookie. But like, it's just fucking low IQ at that point. Like, how do you let first off a good submission artist like that? You had the top position. You went under his shoulder. You felt him go under your neck. When did you not understand the danger? I'm just actually confused. Like, even in the Discord for people that are training, they said he put his head in the choke, which I don't have to fucking know rocket science to tell you that, yeah, he put his head under the arms where he started squeezing. But and then Andre Fili had the nerve to kind of be mad at himself and like slam them. It's like, yo, what are you? It just actually frustrated the hell out of me because Costa had a decision win on the fucking way. And I can't think of anything else right now but his fucking detailed ass tattoo on his chest. Like, oh my goodness. Anyway, that dude is like, I just see this picture. Anyway, yeah, Costa with the colorful hair, come in with the Cookie Monster UFC photo. I don't know if you saw that. He had the slippers on. He obviously was chilling out. I knew this was a dub. Costa, the 7 losses, they don't tell the story. I actually watched this dude last fight, and I'm telling you guys, he was good. He was impressive when it came to the grappling. He was able to keep the backpack. He was striking. He was doing sub attempts, blah, 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 blah. And then this one, it showed his confidence in his abilities that he would just fucking, fuck it. I'm just going to jump Gilly. I'm already on the ground. It's not like shooting and I'm jumping for the neck. It's like, I'm just going to get the Gilly while we're on the ground because I'm that fucking dude. Not only does it show confidence, but he's also, listen, shout out to all the victims of vitiligo. He is out here representing and he's fighting for a lot. Like, to be the first champion suffering from this disorder, it would be big. It would be monumental for him, not only the victims, whatever you want to say. So I appreciate him a lot.
No, fair enough. I mean, that's certainly more than I had to say about this fight. I mean, yeah, I really, I think you covered most of it, but it really was very strange in the moment to watch the sequence happen where exactly what you said was what it was. I mean, they go down and Feely, like, this was like day one of your ground game defense. I mean, like, like, this was what generally would have been, under any other circumstance, an immediate head popping out and him just having top control. Like, it was stunning to me that the guillotine was locked into that point, because, like, I thought that when they started going down, I was like, it looked like he might have his hands locked, but that's something that is just like a common thing, like, in that
Brace for impact, kind of deal.
right, exactly. That's just part of the motion, and then the rest happens. And generally, 9 times out of 10, the sequence continues down in whatever way it's going to go, but it's not that. And so to have it actually be a finishing sequence was just very stunning. I mean, like, it was one of those ones that I was genuinely caught off guard by, because it's just, you'd think that at 24-11 coming into this fight, like you said, he is no spring chicken in this sport. Andre Fili is a name who's been around for quite some time. This is really day one stuff. I'm like, textbook is the only word that sprung to mind immediately to describe it. It's like, you set it up for him. So, I mean, like, yeah, you're saying he was all upset about it. It's like, bro, I mean, I hope you were just mad at yourself, because this is all you're doing. I mean, again, this was a slow fight before this. So really, it was just a lot of kicks on both sides, and then this. So it's like, you couldn't even say that there was like, oh, he was super tired, or it was just a fluky situation, this and that. Like, I mean, this really was like, every element early in the fight was all equal. I mean, like, all the things that, like, you should have, your faculties about you, your cardio, your strength is still there. All of the elements were still at their peak. I mean, this was very, it was towards the end of the round, but one round into the fight, when you're fighting at featherweight, I mean, like, all of the elements were completely there for you to not have this happen, and you got yourself into the exact place for it to happen. So, I mean, this really is kind of a big blotch on Feely's record as far as I'm concerned, especially considering the record that he already has. He's one of those guys. You yourself talked about it. I was really glad that you did. He is the definition of a checkerboard fighter. I mean, a candy cane fighter over here, win, loss, win, loss. This is, following that exact pattern as it continues. Like, I would think that this should be this above some of the other losses really shines more, because by this point in your career, this should not happen. That's just point blank period. So, not to take away from Costa over here, I mean, he did what he was supposed to do, and you're right, showing out for the sufferers of vitiligo is definitely a nice credit to him as well. He could certainly be a vocal voice. He did the Dalmatian face
That
paint.
was hard.
Yeah, raising awareness. I'm with all of that. So, I mean, really not trying to take anything away from him, but again, it's like he was served this win on a silver platter, all coming from Feely, who should know better. And that's really where I end up with this. Is just I'm disappointed in Andre Feely on this one. Like, your record should show that you are more aware than this.
And I got a lot of praise for Costa, but Andre Feely, at a certain point, you come into the fight and you're thinking, no way is the purple hair guy going to beat me, right? And then you make a stupid mistake and you let him finish you, let alone to a guy like this. Dude, this was decision all over the place. And the fact that gosh, it's really crazy to think that, and you tried to, you want to talk about how this isn't impressive on, not it, that's not what you said, but the fact that Costa was able to finish somebody who's so deep into their career, who, gets finished by good people. I think it's either a sign that Andre Feely is clearly not on the level that he was, which he's not. But he did split decision to Cub Swanson, and Cub Swanson just came off a finish. I just double checked. I had to, and then obviously lost. But Costa, I think he's on to something good. I'm really good with the energies that I felt before the fight, and he came in with a lot of energy that it paid off. Not to me, but for himself, kind of deal.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, look, if it's changing of the guard time as far as Feely is concerned, then that just is what it is. Of course, the loss is now creeping up to a very noticeable point. When it starts getting to the halfway into your win percentage, that's not a great look. That's really starting to get into very negative territory. So it just might be one of those deals where Feely's just going to stick around as a guy who's just sort of there, and that's okay too. But I like I said, this specific set of circumstances is much more of a blotch on the record than some of his other losses, because it's just like that kind of thing should not happen with the perceived skill level that you should be at. And as a known name in this sport, I mean, Andre Feely is I mean, like, he might not be known to, like, he's not a household name to the more casual observer, but like, if you follow the sport, the name. I mean, he's fought great fighters before. Like, hopefully this is what you're saying, and that it's Costa coming into his own and becoming, one of these new wave guys. But I it's hard for me to rationalize this loss for Feely the way that it went down.
Hear my perspective of it. You have Andre Feely, who the first time I saw him, I believe it was like some decision that he lost, but then I'm pretty sure he got knocked out by Dan Ige is what I saw after that. And then he got the split decision against Cub Swanson, which at the time, what do I know about Cub Swanson? That's just some old vet, Okay, Andre Feely gets a split decision against an old vet. Now you have, Costa, who in only recent memory, he's lost to Thiago Moises, right? That's not that bad. I mean, he did get subbed by him, and then you have, Steve Garcia, that dude's knocking everybody out. To get knocked out by him, come on. I mean, everybody is. So I think Costa, when you come into this matchup from this perspective, it's like Andre Feely is not on my level. I lose to good people, right? And Andre Feely right now, he's not anybody that I should feel danger for. And they only take matchups that you would want to. You think somebody can beat you, you competition kind of deal. But I think Costa had this one in the bag, man. Whether I believed he got the sub, that just shows that he could have done it anyway. He was definitely leading the striking, whether it was fun or exciting. That don't matter. He was definitely leading the striking at the time. And then when it got to the ground, he made his move and he pulled the trigger and got it done.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much as open and shut as it gets there. So we'll see what happens with Feely going forward. It's definitely going to be like one of those performances that like colors your vision of him, at least for me. Because before this, I would have been like, oh, yeah, he might have a good number of losses at this point. He might be a checkerboard fighter, but like at the same time, he can still win a fight. Like he's still somebody to watch out for. He's still dangerous, this and that. But just those kinds of losses, like it makes it very hard to to put backing behind a fighter who's going to get himself into that situation. I mean, this is as textbook as it gets. So.
Well, you speak of the checkerboard, so just be ready to put some money on Andre Feely for his next fight because he might be winning, Terrence McKinney style.
There you go. I guess that is a good point, right? If hard losses equal great bounce backs, right? With
there you go.
Great setbacks lead to great getbacks. So maybe that'll be the case. Yeah. But either way, shout out to Costa on a good win, and that's about that.
Appreciate him.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see what he does in his next one, but. All right, moving on to Iwan Kutelaba versus Ibo Aslan. This was a wild fight. I quite enjoyed this one. Two madmen, it seemed like at times. I mean, Aslan a little bit less than Kutelaba, but Kutelaba is just that guy is a head case in the most fun way possible, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. Right when the fight started, I think I do this every time Kutelaba fights. Because his record is so deceiving, you would think he's on the back end of it, but like he's only like 31 or whatever. Like the dude, if he wants to keep fighting, I mean, there's no reason not to let him do it. I mean, I know some people are bad, but like he's as of right now, he's proven that he can still beat contenders. Like he's not somebody who is falling. Andre Feely is not being able to beat contenders. Not contenders, but whatever you want to say, prospects. Excuse me. And Kutelaba, goddamn, did he go in there and he takes some shots, and that was pretty impressive because I was not that I didn't believe the hype, but like I said in the first fight that we were talking about, the finish might have been a little fluky. The ref stepped in, nobody actually fell down, nobody was unconscious, whatever you want to say. But I believe the hype. Like Ibo was a machine. He does throw a lot of strikes. He had 14 finishes, 14 wins. I was believing in it. And Kutelaba, talk about veteran move. It's always this. It's not the same, but it always feels like the same type of veteran. The heads up play. It's like, wow, fuck, he got him in the one thing that he knew that he could do, and it sucks. And I don't know if this is correct. I'm pretty sure this is what the commentary crew said. This was the first Kutelaba submission in the UFC.
That is correct. Yes, indeed it is. Kind of wild to think about, but yeah, I mean, earlier before the submission, I mean, these guys, dude, huge shots from both dudes, crazy looping shots. I mean, clubbing each other. This was we'll talk about another one that was a barroom brawl here next, but I mean, this really was two dudes just going wild haymaker swings at each other. Kutelaba ends up getting the takedown, does a great job of lacing the legs, which I always appreciate. I talked about that on the last episode. You corral those legs and it becomes very difficult to move, which at light heavyweight is even more tough. Bigger frames, bigger guys, less mobility, theoretically at least, and certainly in this case, ends up getting that head and arm. And his first submission in the UFC, very crazy. The whole thing, this sequence, this fight felt like a hailstorm moved in. You know what I mean? It was just like one of those things that it's like the fight starts and it's just bang, 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 and then just the fight's over now. It was like, whoa, that was a lot going on in a short amount of time.
So imagine me, and I didn't put money on this, but once again, I will mention, surely a decision would come at this point. And,
right.
And I thought it would go to Kutelaba. I'm like, okay, he's gonna out maneuver him, and Ebo's going to gas out, which I always agree that he normally does. But the fact that he was able to just get him down, finish him with a submission. I mean, I don't think I saw one bet slip on Twitter. Somebody would fucking post it if they had Cutelaba sub, but I don't think anybody on the planet Earth made money off a Cutelaba sub bet. Like, I'm serious.
It was like I think that they had said that on, I guess on DraftKings, their book, it was like a plus 1,400. So it was probably about as long of a long shot as you're going to get.
Yeah, so it's crazy to think that. I mean, is it really crazy to think that he came out here and did it? Because he somehow, and I can't tell you the ones that he's done it, but he sometimes just beats people, and he's one of these dudes. And I know there's that archetype of people you don't bet on their fights because they can just somehow do it. Angela Hill was one of those people, but
yep.
Cutelaba has been added to the list. Like, he's kind of interesting, but he's also just a goofball. Like, can I really put money on the circus clown? I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, he is absolutely in that camp of dudes that win when he's supposed to lose and lose when he's supposed to win. So, yeah, this was another one that I was kicking myself for having on the safe parlay. I thought that Ebo was pretty much a lock on this one. I was completely wrong in that assessment, and that is completely on me for not sticking to the wisdom that I have gained in the same way that I bet on Angela Hill, or bet against Angela Hill on the last card. I'm kicking myself for not listening to myself. This is something that I need to do more. But that being said, it was an entertaining fight, so I was okay with it. And Cutelaba is actually pretty entertaining on the mic. Not gonna lie. I mean, that post-fight interview was kind of, yeah, he's an odd cat, man, and I don't know, I was fucking with it.
I was definitely I was listening, but at first, the first like 5 minutes that he had on the mic, I didn't understand what the fuck he was saying, because I thought he was retiring. I was like, wait, he said he was gonna lay down his gloves, but I think he was like saying in like an honorable. I don't know what the fuck he was talking about at first, and then he kept trying to say the F word, and it's just not in his accent ability, apparently, because it just didn't come out right. But it was hilarious that he kept saying it, and he was ready for a fight. Like, he's ready to go tomorrow. Like, I'm ready for it too. If this is what we get, I don't know if he did the Hulk painting. I know that's like his thing. If he brings that back, I'll probably I'll enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah, his post-fight interview reminded me of Yuri Prohashka trying to talk to Mego Levy about the the dudes at the hotel, and his celebration and all that. It was like, you knew what he was trying to get across, but it was just not 100% there, and it was very entertaining for that reason. And I mean, he's an interesting guy, man. I cannot say that I dislike the dude. I've started to gain more of an appreciation for Iwan Cutelaba. And now getting wins, that's certainly going to help. Nothing matters if you don't win. So, get your wins and you can continue to be your goofy self.
Yeah. And what sucks about all the times that this happens is like, and more times it does happen this way, is like, now we have a prospect that's just, all right, well, he just falls off the fucking flat earth, like Ebo's just cooked now. Like, does he even have a shot? Like, who fucking knows? Like, it sucks that that's just like the mindset. It's like, Cutelaba really just like ruined this dude's hopes and dreams in a sense so far right now. Like, and Ebo was mad at himself. He was mad. You could see it in his face, but as soon right when they called Cutelaba's name, you could see him like clench his fist. Like, it was good. It was a good moment.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't think that Aslan is not going to be able to come back and do his thing. I'm certainly not of that mindset. I just think that Cutelaba is such a wild card that this was the fight that he was going to lose for exactly why it played out the way that it did. So I think that a different fighter, different circumstances, Aslan comes back and does just fine.
Like a can. Yeah, I get you.
Like what?
Like a can. Yeah, I get you. Ebo will definitely.
I wouldn't go that far. I don't think that it's that way, because I thought that Aslan was I mean, like, of the two of them, at least. Now, I mean, don't take it farther than this. But of the two of them, I think that he was slightly more technical, at least earlier in the fight. But
You
yeah,
weren't
I mean, like,
expecting a technical masterpiece from Cutelaba. Come on.
right. That's, I mean, you never can. So, I mean, it's like, now that being said, though, I think that technicality will work against somebody else. I mean, like, if you don't have a wild man like Iwan Kutelaba throwing the craziest haymakers at you, then, there's potential for you to be able to navigate the fight a little bit more effectively. So I don't think that Aslan needs to get put into tomato can territory just yet, but we'll see. Time will tell. And Iwan Kutelaba, he remains.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see some more of him. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess then
Introduce the
that.
main card. I'm gonna run to the restroom, and then I'll
Yeah,
be
go
right back.
for it,
I
man.
got plenty to say about this one. I
I'm
tell
sure
you,
you
I got a
do.
lot.
Yeah, go for it. All right. Well, while he is doing that, we'll get this queued up here. This is Alonzo Menafield versus Julius Walker. Walker, of course, coming in on short notice and making his debut in the organization. I did have the note in here that Vitz King pointed out on the watch along. Why is it that Walker only has one cauliflower ear, and that one cauliflower ear is like real bad? Thought that was kind of interesting once he pointed it out, because I didn't notice it at first, but it's like once you see it, like he's got one side that is super cauliflowered, and then the other ear is just, yeah, it's just a normal ear. So if the last fight was a barroom brawl, this was a pool hall shuffle, to be sure. This was a barroom brawl for the ages. Walker doing a pretty decent job for coming in on short notice, making his debut against a top 15 fighter, I thought. I mean, of course, Anakin saying that this was fight of the night and that is somewhat laughable. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'm sure Chase is going to have a lot to say about that too. But taking that aspect of it, Walker doesn't have any control over that part of it. Regardless of it, I thought that it was a really decent performance for him just coming into the organization. So here returns Chase to give his analysis of this thing.
Going into this fight, I instantly noticed that Alonzo Menafield has been somebody that I've watched lose because of low fight IQ. And looking across him at Julius Walker coming in at 6-0, all finishes, and at 6'4", I was thinking, oh, this is interesting. This is a very good dog. And the fact that I watched this entirety of the fight and I said, this was an amazing dog to put money on if you did. It's just unfortunate that this was right around the time that I thought to myself, okay, well, before the card, I said out of all the fights that are going to get, decisions, this one I surely is going to finish, right? Like, this is where I really got fucked over. Like I said, round one, Julius Walker finish. Like, you have to get me out the mud. And I think this was another fight where it was a good moment where he got him kind of rocked a little bit, and then he ends up fucking shooting for a fucking takedown. It was another frustrating moment, I believe, in this fight for Julius Walker. But other than that, I think he was fucking insane for a light heavyweight coming in as a basketball player who's never really had traditional training up until a few however it goes. He comes in, he throws 16 leg kicks, he throws 33 body shots, lands 33 body shots, and lands 37 headshots. Like, he's out here mixing it up. He's shooting 9 takedowns. He didn't get taken down on the one that he had. He has great mobility for a dude who's a very tall, slender, kind of tree built guy. He has all the instincts of a very good fighter. And somebody, somebody that has good instincts, obviously you have to be coachable and you have to be able to get into the right system and stuff like that. But like, he has the instincts that can get him very, very far. What I think is unfortunate, and I will note specifically, is once, shout out, in the Discord, shout out my boy North. He said, wait a minute, this is 12th ranked versus a debut guy. I said, oh, I'm an idiot if this, now that it's going to decision, of course, I said, oh, they would never let somebody on their debut take the 12th ranked, quote unquote, and unfortunately, looking at the scorecards and how it ended up, I think that played a part 100% because Julius Walker won this fucking fight. And I'm curious to see, maybe I missed your part where you said it. Obviously, I was gone. But if you did not think Julius Walker won this fight, you are insane. This was clear coat. I'm serious.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think that I think it was. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the decision because it was a split decision loss for Walker with a 30-27 in there, which is like this is anytime that you see that, obviously there's some kind of fuckery going on with the judging. So I don't know if it had anything to do with the ranking element of it or any of that kind of stuff. The commission is of course separate from the organization, all that stuff that we talk about, but either way, yeah, I do think that Walker did win this fight in a general sense, but it was close. I mean, I think that it being a split decision was not necessarily the worst because of how close it was. And I think for a lot of the reasons that you're mentioning, and also one of the things that I had in the notes is what Anakin had said here is that Menifield's takedown defense is really great. He kept his weight distributed really well, so he didn't have to worry as much about getting taken down in the clinch situations, which I think might have been one of the detrimental elements to Walker was as much as he was mixing it up, because that was another huge note was that, great knees, great elbows, tried for the kicks, really liked that he was mixing up the attacks, but when he was going back to the clinch, they were saying on commentary, oh, it was a good look for him to grind him down, wear him down that way. And I was like, to an extent, yes, if it gets to the point that you want it to get to, but Menefield just, even if he was gassed, it's like, I think that Walker also kind of exerted a lot of energy to get to the point that he was trying to get to and never fully got there. So like it almost worked against him in the end because of that. So all of those things being said, I do think that this was a really, really sharp performance for Walker, aside from the banana peel slip when he went to go throw that one kick and went straight up and over. That was pretty funny. He caught some air on that one. But aside from that, I mean, the real, I think, biggest problem was that by round 2, it felt like both of these guys were pretty gassed. So like by the time that it was getting into the later elements of the later portion of the fight, like into round 3, it was a little bit foregone. I mean, Walker might have been slightly less gassed, perhaps, but both of them had exerted a lot of energy in that first round. I remember Saif Saud telling Menefield to be first, and I'm like, he needs to be at all at the moment, which it's like not a great note to have to say. So yeah, I would agree that that Walker probably did take this fight. Close fight though. I mean, petty theft at best. I wouldn't call this a robbery by any stretch. Of course, a split decision is not going to be that. But I definitely think that Walker needs to be a guy that sticks around, because this was a really nice showing against a ranked guy in your debut. That's a pretty big stage to be on.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, you have to understand that this is a dude who's never seen the judges in his mixed martial arts, his short mixed martial arts career.
Right.
And the fact that he was able to go in there and be gassed after, one round at minimum, and able to get to the bell. And at no point, and this is what I think is key, right? Is that at no point did he show me major, like obviously the gas tank, but like major holes in the game. Like he was shooting takedowns. I can't complain. He controlled him for 5 minutes on the one takedown, or the clinch, or the cage clinch, whatever you want to say. He mixed up the leg kicks at light heavyweight. Like you can't ask for much more out of those 3. And then to mention that he actually got to the bell and he fought all the way through, and like there was still an opportunity for him to do something. When you see people come in and obviously on their debut and they're somebody that you don't know of, and you see a major hole in the game and then somebody exploits it, it's like, well, get them out of here. But like Julius Walker showed great not, I don't know. It's great promise, yes, but like in the moment, like he showed excellent things. And promise aside, like that fight alone, I don't think it was fight of the night, but like as of right now, I mean, it's the only one that went to a decision. It was kind of a slugfest. So in the moment, yeah, this would be fight of the night probably. So good for
Yeah,
him. He did
up
get paid
until
for it, 50K.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at that part of it for him, but there was a fight we'll talk about in a little bit that
Yes, we
surpassed
will.
this. But yeah, the other thing that I did want to touch on was that Dana apparently posted a picture of Menifield's injured foot after the fight. Do you know what happened there? Like how he injured his foot? Like, or there's like a cut between the toes, it looked like, or something like that. Like, I don't know what would have done that in this fight. But it is an image that was going around, so I don't know if you caught that.
I did see the image. It just looked like a toe with blood on it, like a foot with blood on it to me. The only thing that I can think of that is plausible is, and maybe at one point I did think something like this, but he like stuck his foot in the cage and it just
That's what
like
it would have looked like to me too, is that maybe it got caught in the cage at some point or in
by
the
the door or something,
yeah, in the apron maybe or whatever, that the portion where the mat meets the cage. Sometimes people get their feet caught in there. That's I believe how Tatiana Suarez ended up cutting her knee was in that area. So it could have been something like that. But yeah, it was just kind of posted without context. So I was like, I just was curious if there was a definitive reason for that. But yeah, I mean that's really all I got about this one. And then while you were away, I did mention that. Did you notice that Walker only has one cauliflower ear, but it's a really bad cauliflower ear on the one side?
Yeah, I don't think I noticed it, but like, hey, man, fuck it. He got his battle scar. He got one. He didn't need the other. It's like the purest ears. It's like I'll get the one, and Michael Jordan style.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, maybe he's working his way towards the other, but it was noticeable when it was pointed out to me because it's like bad on one side and then just a regular normal ear on the other side, like
He's got to
more so
listen to
than.
music somehow. He's got to have his earbuds. And
There you go, I guess. So, yeah, but I mean, not a bad fight. Definitely, a pair of guys slugging it out well into them being tired. A couple fouls on both sides because of them being tired. So, obviously, they were giving their all and getting a little bit sloppy because of the level of intensity they were putting into the fight. So, had there not been another fight that was more deserving, this certainly could have been fight of the night, and I wouldn't have been mad at it. But under the circumstances, it was a little surprising.
yeah, I agree.
All right, well let's keep the train moving here. This is not the fight that we're referencing, but this is certainly a knockout that has been added to the knockout of the year contenders. This is John Silva versus Melsik Bagdasaryan. I mean, what do you say about something like this? This was, I think, pretty much expected by a lot of people, but not necessarily the exact set of circumstances that we got, because it was somewhat entertaining to see how it all finished.
Yeah, I mean, I could have told you guys this, and I knew it. Listen, I'm not trying to say name value holds much, but like when you go from Charles Jourdain and Drew Dober in 14 days, and you go back down to your normal weight class, and they give you somebody that I've never heard of. I mean, what do I expect John Silva, the Lord John Silva of the Fighting Nerds? What do I expect him to do? Make me not know this dude's name furthermore, and that's exactly what he's going to do. John Silva came out here and it was a very timid round one, like to start, it was very heavy on the feints. And honestly, I want to bring it up early because I think it's crucial because I do believe it now. And now that I bring up the first half of the round being slow, John Silva with his hand high-fiving and his commencing of the fight at the moment. I do believe I saw somebody pointed out that maybe he does it, when the fight is like when they're stagnant kind of deal. Obviously, there's not much going on, but he does it to break the action and catch them off guard, as Alex did to Jamal, quote unquote. That's another reference for it. And as I think about it, I low-key believe it. I think John Silva really fucked this dude up. I think he fucked him up because he caught him off guard, having a good time. Yeah, man, and then just bombed him with one, like, and if there was actually screenshots, it's like, don't high five with John Silva, and it's like 4 seconds of clips, and it's like 2 seconds, 2 seconds, and it's like high five, knockout, knockout, and it's like 3 seconds. It's like,
Yeah.
John Silva's that fucking dude. But like, I do want to know your opinion after your rant. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up early, but like, I do think that he's on to something. Maybe like, this is the nerds doing their thing. Fuck it. If you're gonna be different, be different and have it work. I don't know. John Silva's just, I don't know, man. He's got it.
No, yeah, I mean, look, if that is the circumstances of that and that's the reasoning, then I'm all for it, because I forget off the top of my head who was doing it. I wish I could recall right now. I mean, we talked about it on the show, but there was the one dude a while back who was doing the foot stomp. He was stomping his foot occasionally to catch his opponent off guard and just throw the attention in a different direction. There was another guy, also different fighter, but a similar idea, where he was pointing places. He would like kind of
You
just
see that
point
with
up.
John Silva a little bit. He does the
Yeah.
pointing a little bit. Go ahead.
So,
Sorry.
so I mean, like, I'm okay with throwing these guys off in that regard if that's what you're doing there. I'm not mad at it. I don't mind that at all. I mean, it's a perfectly sound strategy if it works, and that's really more on your opponent to not get suckered in, because really that sounds like to me the guy who you're hanging out with a dude, he's acting like your best friend, and then all of a sudden he's you get sucker punched. It's I mean, like, that's, you get caught. You know what I mean? That's exactly why they do it. So if it's working, then I don't see any problem with it. I did see the criticism online after this fight that people had said, I think we all need to acknowledge that John Silva is a little bit annoying. I mean, I could slightly understand that to an extent when he's in Buff's face during the announcements. Like, he's smiling and dapping up his opponents, being a bit of a goofball out there.
He's trembling, he's crying, doing this whole thing.
He's at one point he's smiling, the other point he's crying. It's an interesting display with him. But all of that being said, all of what we just said being said, a walk-off knockout shuts a hater up real quick. So it really doesn't matter what you think. Obviously, it should have been a walk-off knockout. So, I mean, we'll talk about that element of it here. When he gets the knockdown, Bagdasaryan is clearly turtling up, clearly not wanting any more of the fight. He knows it. Bagdasaryan knows it. Kevin McCarthy, the referee, is the only one who seemed to not realize it in the moment, saying, hey, keep going, keep going. He wanted a little bit more. So Silva's like, all right, I mean, if you say so. Ref went in there and did his thing, got a couple more shots in that were certainly unnecessary at the ref's beckoning, but that is what it is. I don't know why McCarthy wanted to see more, but he certainly did, and that's where it was at with that.
Yeah, the moment was it was so long of a moment. So John Silva knocks him down, sort of kind of like how Peyton Talbot did with whatever the French guy is. He kind of just looked at him for a second, and then he went to, John Silva knocks him down, points at, he's like, here's the platter. Like, this is what you want, ref. And there was there was moments. Bagdasaryan looked at John Silva, looked at the ref, looked back at John Silva. John Silva is now understanding the ref wants him to die. I gave 3 audible yelling, ref, stop. And it was kind of funny to me because, like, I knew this was a can, but it's like, yo, ref, are you wanting him to die? I give 3 of them. I didn't go quick. Like, dude, he wanted him to absolutely murder him. And John Silva, it's funny because after he realized, actually, he didn't go straight to the elbows. He popped him like 2 times straight in the face and then went to the elbows, which very effective. John Silva does like his body elbows, and I think it's very creative and effective. And then he, drops an elbow to the head and then walks off. The ref absolutely had no mercy. Must have had he had the bet on the decision, like me, seriously. Like, he wanted that to go on. I don't know what that was about. That was crazy.
Yeah, needed the over on the strikes, I guess. But yeah, it was an odd set of circumstances, to be sure. I think that the only person who didn't see what the reality of the situation was the referee in that moment, which is never a good thing. The one person you want to be fully aware of what is happening in the fight is the referee, and he sort of dropped the ball on that one. To his credit, at least, he didn't like let it go like a ridiculous amount of time thereafter. I mean, it was pretty quick after he realized what it was, but the fact that he had to come around to it when John Silva's looking at him like, buddy, he's done. He's out of here. What do you want from me? He's like, yeah, go. Oh, okay, I will. It was very weird and not a great look for Kevin McCarthy, but either way, pretty much as expected. I did want to at least briefly bring up in Bogdasarian's defense here, Anakin making a good point that, Melsick is coming off of 2 years of layoff based on injuries and whatnot. So unfortunate for him to come back after all of that time off just to run into John Silva. This is, it could have been a lot more favorable to him to, give him a primer fight to get back into, into top form, but they threw him right into the fire and he felt the heat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, John Silva is he is living up to the hype, and I think Anakin brings up a really good matchup. Steve Garcia and John Silva. Listen, if we got these two hard hitters, I'm ready to see them go against each other. And I know asking for that is probably not asking for a finish because, putting up two really talented, high level people doesn't always end in a finish. This one, though, John Silva, I think this was a clear-cut choice for him to knock out Bagdasarian. And I didn't want to put money on it because that was, the favorite. But John Silva, I knew in my heart this was what was going to happen. I'm very happy that it happened. And, man, it was good to see. And obviously made a meme out of it. So there you go. He's going to be even more marketable now.
Absolutely. Always love when you get a good knockout and a meme on top of it. That's a good combo. This was one of the few that I had 100% correct predicted on verdict. So, first round knockout was what was on the books for me. And I was glad to see that I at least was able to, get that one right, because this did seem like a pretty clear cut case of that being what was going to happen. So, good job for Silva. Continuing on up the ranks. I mean, or not up the ranks, but I mean, he needs to be up against a ranked guy immediately. I mean, there is no more denying John Silva at this point. I mean, come on, this should have been a ranked fighter to begin with that he was going up against. We talked about that on the previous episode about how this was an odd matchup to begin with. This was a weird set of circumstances for this to even be what it was. So, all fuckery aside with the card and all of the stuff that was getting changed around and switched up or whatever was going on with any of that element of it, get John Silva into a booked fight with the right opponent, whoever it may be, Steve Garcia or otherwise. He needs to be up against the level of competition that he is time and time again portraying that he is ready for. So,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have listen, money aside, this is we'll get to the other one of two where the matchup's like, I don't care about the money, especially when it's one of my favorite fighters. And like, this dude he's been around since I started watching, religiously. And he's been doing exactly what the top person should be doing to people that are just not on his level. And I'm not to say Drew Dober and Charles Jourdain are not on a high level, but John Silva's just on a different level than that, like, why, again, like you said, like, this should have been a ranked opponent. This Melsick, no, dude, like, come on. They should have known better.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, he did call out Bryce. So if that's, Bryce seems to want that fight too. Bryce does have some fight news, apparently. He was supposed to be fighting or doing a grappling match in Karate Combat that now has been canceled. So obviously he's got something bigger and more substantial in the UFC lined up. I don't know if it's going to be Silva or not, but there's some news for Bryce. If it's Bryce, if it's somebody else, whoever it may be, the time is now.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Honestly, John Silva is one of those dudes where, like, he might just show up short notice on lightweight. Who knows? He could do whatever he wants. And honestly, again, he's he's one of these dudes where I don't really care. He could do whatever the hell he wants. If he's going to keep doing it this way, I will definitely be tuning in.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's been time and time again with this guy, proven himself over and over again. It's certainly time for him to get the big test.
100%.
All right, let's keep the train moving here. Going into the fight we've been referencing a couple of times now. This is Rob Font versus John Matsumoto. This fight was a really excellent display on both sides. This should have been fight of the night for sure.
I agree it should have been fight of the night, but I also disagree with the judging that I'll jump into. John Matsumoto, I thought was doing just enough mixing the martial arts that he was gonna not skate by, but I thought like, oh, okay, like he's doing the right things each round that are gonna secure it in the judge's eyes. And I find it crazy that it didn't go his way. And I've seen a lot of people make the argument that like, okay, he did get takedowns, but he didn't do anything with them. And yeah, he wasn't, actively striking, 6 minutes of control time, whether you want to talk about being active or not. It's not like this was a boring grappling exchange going on between these two. Like they didn't make it look like crotch sniffing, to say the least. But if we're going to worry about what's happening after the takedown, I know I'm being obviously I would say this completely different about a different fighter, but like if we're going to expect him to do something after he gets a takedown, then take the fucking takedown stat off. If he has to do some strikes with it, or if he has to get a sub attempt, and just only go off control time. If having the takedowns, especially 70% takedown rating against your opponent means nothing, then I'm genuinely confused, because I thought that was how you secure rounds. Okay, striking's close. Let me get a takedown at the end of the round. And that's not what Jean Matsumoto was doing. That's why I didn't even think it was a thought like, oh, he needs to secure. Like he was already doing it. His striking was fine. He was taking big shots. He was giving big shots. And then he was getting takedowns. It was actually very crazy to me that this happened, because I stand on the fact that this was the first legit robbery of 2025. Like all the other ones, I think, okay, passable. This one right here didn't add up to me. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say that it was a straight robbery because it was a close fight. I mean, it was not so one-sided that it was like mind-blowing that the decision went to Font, in my opinion. I mean, but if you go round by round, I do agree. I do think that it was that it wasn't the right call, and I will tell you why. Round by round, I guess. So round one, I think, was really the deciding round as far as like where the the scales were tipped, so to speak. Because I mean, but even that, it was close. That's the problem with it. So round one, better striking for Rob, but the ground game was all Matsumoto, plus the slam at the horn. That's the thing that I think really swung it for me. And what you were saying about like getting those takedowns and, having the control part of it as well. I mean, like that to me would have been like, at the very least, should have made that a 10-10 round if like you were really being hypercritical. Because I mean, like you could say, yeah, well, Rob was doing better striking. Yeah, he was, but like the slam to me was like the cherry on top of all of the groundwork that Matsumoto was doing on the second half of the round. So like at the very best, it was an even round. At more accurate, in my opinion, that was Matsumoto's round. Round two was all Matsumoto. Really high level work on with the control in that round. I was very impressed with the things that Matsumoto was doing with the leg control specifically. He was eating up the lead leg with kicks. This was something that Vitz King pointed out on the watch along that I thought was a very accurate assessment of what the strategy was for Matsumoto. He was eating up the lead leg with kicks and then doing that really, really like technically. I mean, like I was extremely impressed with the control. Like when he was grabbing the foot and just holding on to the foot to like control the movement, having Font on one leg to like keep him off balance and not let him get the mobility that he wanted. Like I was like, this is high level strategizing that's really paying off. plus a really nice head kick at the horn as well. Like Matsumoto had these two nice big moments at the horn in both of those first rounds. Round 3, Rob Font took that round. He did cut Matsumoto. So, I mean, the damage looked good. And of course, you know that the referees are often swayed by blood. You know, damage is king. But I mean, I didn't think that you could have that. If you're judging round by round, you can't have that be the entirety of what's swaying the fight. I mean, you know, like, yeah, Font was doing good work in the clinch. I mean, like, okay, but like if you're going round by round, it was just, it's an odd decision to me. Um, I mean, the one big takeaway that I would say that I think is a positive note, if you did think that the split decision was not in the right direction, was that every positive credit that we were giving to Matsumoto prior to this fight still stands. All of the things that we said are true about him. He's super technical, very talented. He's going to go on to do fun, like good things in this sport. This is his first loss, you know, 16-1 now. Came into this fight, he was 16-0. Like, this guy is going places for sure. So this is an unfortunate way for the O to go. But if it was going to go, at least it was a close fight. You know what I mean? Like, this was not him getting knocked out in the first round and it's like, oh, you know, fraud check time or any of that kind of stuff. This was not that. So that at least was positive, but it was a tough one. It was a tough one in that regard. I do think that he took those first 2 rounds.
Yeah, it just sucks, having, as you explained it, having the whole fight predicated basically on what the judges saw as blood when it was a cut on the top of the head. Heads bleed a lot, and it's not something that's impairing his vision. It's not like he was wearing a mouse on his face, anything like that. But at the end of the day, if your only loss to date is something that the fans would agree you won, I mean, you can't really do much more than what you did in the performance. And it was a great performance for Matsumoto, especially like Anakin just said, on short notice, stepping in for Dom Cruz. That was the fight that got canceled.
Right.
He showed, one, this is probably the first time I talked about it with Islam, the first time that they've bled. That's a pretty big moment in the combat sports career. Jean Matsumoto has probably never bled up until this point, and he was able to weather that storm. Also, I know you didn't bring it up. I don't know if you even caught it. He was able to weather the storm from Rob Font being a cheeky bastard at the beginning of the fight.
Yeah,
and
I did have that note.
I give him credit. It was very slick. He popped him. He gave him 2 jabs. He didn't set it up like a glove touch. He set it up like a jab. He jabbed his hand, jabbed, and then hit him with a straight. And it was, listen, if the judging based any of the scoring of damage or, heavy strikes based on that moment for round 1, and that's how they won, sure. If Rob Font needed to do that to secure the round, sure. But man, that was a crazy moment. I'm not gonna lie, Rob Font, cheeky bastard for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the replay on it. It was like it was like half and half. I mean, like, he did sort of touch, but it was like a little bit more forceful than a touch. You know what I mean? So I could see it. I mean, like, he'd probably say, no, that was a touch. You know what I mean? Like, he'd be like, no, I mean, that was, I kind of dapped it with that wasn't a hard shot, that kind of thing. He would probably say that he did the touch and then just immediately went into the next jab, but I could kind of see it both ways on that one. So, the other note to that part, at least, was that Matsumoto did continue to advance himself. Like, he kept going forward also. So Font could say, hey, well, I mean, we touched and then he was coming forward. What did you want me to do? Whatever. I don't think that was necessarily the defining moment of that round, but the defining moments of that round were all things that Matsumoto was doing way more than the striking of Rob Font, in my opinion. So, tough one for Matsumoto on that. Like I had said, I did have Font on the underdog parlay that came through. So happy as far as the bank account goes, but in reality, this probably was not the right call. So I'd go petty theft on this one, just off of the fact that it was so close. I mean, that's what you really, if you are Rob Font and you're in a firefight like this, where, you've got a lot going against you, then you've got to make it as close as possible. So exactly what happened, or what could happen, does happen, which is what did happen here. I mean, you make it as close as you can so that you leave it to the judges and then hope for the best. And sometimes the best comes through.
Yeah, shout out Rob Font. I will say at this point in his career, I know he's one of the older fighters that we have, but his striking is still, I mean, I'm not going to say still, like I know who this dude is. I've only seen him a couple fights, but like for an old man, quote unquote, this dude's got some good ass fucking boxing. He had this fucking tank of a Brazilian, not only on the back foot for a moment, but he rocked him not just once in the initial on his little cheeky move, but he did have him on the ropes a little bit in a couple of different sequences. Rob Font, it's not just the boxing technicality. I mean, he does pack a punch for this weight class that we're in. And going up, to catch weight, he might have packed a little more punch today or on Saturday, whatever you want to say. And John Matsumoto, shout out this dude because he really is. I think he's really about it. I really like this dude.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying, that like all of the things that we thought about him coming into this fight are still the same, which is, I think, the big takeaway from all of this is that this is not really even a loss for Matsumoto to be overly upset by, in my opinion. Of course, it always sucks to have the O go, so that just is what it's going to be. But, other than that specific aspect of it, I mean, experience wise, he definitely took it all the way through against a veteran fighter and a guy who is known to take out hot prospects. I mean, we were referencing the Kyler Phillips fight where I, prior to that had thought that Kyler Phillips was one of those dudes that was really going to be surging forward, and a win over Rob Font would have really elevated him. Same situation for Matsumoto here. It's an unfortunate loss based on the circumstances, but I don't think it colors him as a fighter in any respect. I think he's going to go on to be just fine.
I'm actually glad you brought up, Kyler Phillips. It's like when you look at the two performances between the people that lost against Rob Font recently, John Matsumoto showed one, not only heart, but like he showed the ability to adapt and change what he's doing. Whether it worked, I believe it did. We change the game plan, mix it up enough where the scorecards, you fill the stat sheet. Kyler Phillips, on the other hand, he just accepted that he's going to lose to Rob Font, basically. And Rob Font just kind of styled on him. Like, I don't even think that Kyler Phillips put up a performance. Needless to say, Jean Matsumoto actually was out here trying to win the fight. Kyler Phillips, it felt like he was going to lose right when it started.
Well, fair enough then. Then I guess that even, bolsters my point even more,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Rob Font, listen, shout out Rob Font. That's about it.
Yeah, for sure. And, still one of those dudes that at his later stage of the game is still winning his fights. I mean, again, this is one of those it feels like a gatekeeper situation, so to speak, but like at the same time, he's closing the gate on a lot of guys. So hard to say that he's, I mean, I guess maybe more journeyman might be a more accurate assessment there, unless he really has that push left in him to, to take it to the top, make one more last real meaningful run at it. But I don't know if that's what it's going to be. It might just be for the time being, at least until he decides that he wants to hang him up, him just essentially doing this, taking out guys, early on in their career. And that's just what it's going to be.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
All right. Well, let's get on to this co-main event over here. This is Brendan Allen versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. I would say that Allen looked sharp early in this fight. Based on his last performance, we had talked about it a good amount, and I was pretty critical of it. He just looked very off in his last fight. Like, I thought he might have been like sick or something, or maybe a bad weight cut, or just something seemed very out of sorts for him in his last fight. This was a lot closer of a fight than I would have expected based on that last performance. And shout out to him for at least getting that first round, because I think that he had Fluffy in some pretty hairy circumstances in that first round. It was a lot closer than I would have liked to have seen it if money was on the line going into the second and third rounds.
I think you're going to get a historic moment, because I will actually give the moment to Brendan Allen first, and I will praise him because he now, listen, aside from the first round, yes, okay, he had him on the ropes, but okay, Anthony Hernandez gets fucking hurt in every first round, apparently. I don't know. That's just his thing. Brendan Allen, he has this ability to he has confidence in the wrong moments, right? So he was able to hurt, Fluffy in the first round. Second round, second and third round, he was actually having moments of great striking. And I think against Chris Curtis, he did the same thing where he had great moments of striking. And in those times, I was grateful that he started to shoot like a fucking idiot. But in this time, I'm like, why are you shooting on the dude who's out grappling you after you're actually winning on the feet? It was so concerning to me that Brendan Allen just didn't understand the the capabilities that he had in this striking. And to be fair, I clown on him all the time because I don't believe he's that good. But if he actually fought to what he was like, he's a very tall person for the weight class. He's got a lot of range. He actually has power in his hands too. But he doesn't, that's not his fallback plan. That's not his go-to kill move. Once he hurts you in the striking, he's like, okay, gotta shoot, gotta wrestle. It's like, what are you doing, dude? You could have, dude, it actually frustrated me so bad. And I was rooting for Fluffy, and Fluffy put on a masterful performance. But like Brendan Allen, you you're a victim of your own demise. And the fact, it's just hard to fucking face, I know, but like, bro, you actually had the moment at a couple different times. It's just hard to watch. I don't know, man. It sucked.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, like, it really was an unfortunate navigation of what you were seeing. I mean, we talk about this time and time again with guys who, when they're presented with something in a fight and they don't adjust to it, it really, you put it very well. You know, a victim of your own circumstances really is the story of Brendan Allen in this fight, because he had those bursts on the feet. I mean, he had a couple of moments of reversals and bursts of advantage as well through the second and third, but they were so clearly for Hernandez because he was fighting the fight that Fluffy wanted to fight. And that was essentially where you are going to get caught in the quicksand if you allow yourself to struggle down into it, which is what he did. And that does show just, I mean, I don't want to say it was a low fight IQ thing. I mean, maybe he wanted to beat him at his own game, but I think about fights like Kevin Holland versus Wonder Boy, fight that I actually saw in person. That was a same situation where Holland is like, I'm going to beat you at your own game. Well, no, the fuck you're not. So this is what you get in those kinds of circumstances, and it's unfortunate to see when you have a clearer advantage somewhere else and don't adjust. Commentary towards the end in the third round was legitimately like almost pleading with him, like, bro, you need to not let this go back to the ground, point blank, period. Keep it on the feet. You need to do everything within your power to not get taken down and not go to the ground. Do not initiate ground engagements. Don't do any of that. But it's just like, no, he had this instinct to continue to do it. And it almost reminds me of of Jesus Aguilar, who we were talking about recently, where it's like it's almost an instinctual like subconscious thing to like just go back to your safe zone. And it's like you when you were outside of your comfort zone, you were having way more success than when you were in it, and that becomes your own undoing. So it's an unfortunate element for Brendan Allen, because I know that you've been pretty critical of him. I'm a little bit more accepting of him, whatever you want to say. I mean, like I don't hate him the same way that that other people do necessarily, but like this performance right here was just an unfortunate display when it came to reacting to the fight that you're given.
Yeah, no, this one, dude, I know I've talked a lot of shit about Brendan Allen, and I did not at one point think that he was going to win the fight. But again, I think his striking is what stood out the most. You talked about getting in the pattern of doing the same thing that doesn't work, and that's what he's been doing for a lot of his fights. Even if you go back, I know he lost to Imavov, and it was clear cut. He obviously just was not equipped for, and now we see Imavov going towards the top of the division. But like even going back to the Chris Curtis fight, it's like Brendan Allen has moments where he's doing good, and then he does the thing that is like instinctual to him, which is shoot from his fucking knees when he's tired. And there was none of that in this fight. I will actually give him plenty of credit, but he still had the goofy, stupid moments where like he would in the first round, they were on the feet and he just somehow fell on his back and then Fluffy just took top control. It was like I was like, what are like only Brendan Allen has these fucking goofball move. Like it's crazy to me. It's I don't know. It's
Yeah.
hurtful.
Well, I mean, on the other side of the equation, Fluffy is the definition of a grinder. I mean, this dude is he is a drag and smother machine, this guy. I mean, that's really the same thing that you see in him time and time again is his bread and butter. We've seen it in 3 rounds, we've seen it in 5 rounds. This dude will wear you down no matter how no matter how you think the fight is going to go. He has a clear monorail to his path of victory, and he does not deviate. I mean, like try to outlast this guy. It's just not going to work, it seems like. So, I mean, got to give him credit. There was one moment after he had gotten poked in the eye. They had a brief stop for that. And he did end up getting hurt on the feet after that, so you could see it in his face. He reacted to it pretty strongly, but pushed through that. So it's like, you end up in these situations with him where it's almost like the video game where you're hitting the boss a million times and nothing's working. Like that's what it feels like with him. You can try to do 8 different things and none of them are going to work because he's got his plan and he sticks to it and it's been working for him so far. Will it be able to work when he's getting now higher? I mean, like this is going to put him ranked at 7th or something like that. I mean, he's going up pretty high in the rankings now, or higher anyway. It's going to be interesting to see if he can continue to do that against the elite of the division. But at least as of right now, what works.
I think what is interesting to know, right? So you have Brendan Allen, you have Fluffy, and I fucking totally forgot what I was gonna say. Goddamn! But no, okay. So like, Fluffy, when it comes to ground game, like when we talk about DDP and what he does, right? And I know I'm reaching here. It's like we talk about this dude is he'll smother you, he'll choke you out, he'll beat you. Like what we envision DDP on the ground is actually what Fluffy is. Like he will just smother you with his body. He will just pound you into the mat. And it's like if we would have had 5 rounds here, there would have been the same thing that we saw for 3 rounds, just over 2 more rounds. And it's crazy to think about that he's just a machine like that, because when you look at his striking, it's not that great. He's definitely not on like a DDP awkwardness kind of level. He's on like a Nate Diaz level where he's got to get beat up first and then he'll lay on top of you and then he'll figure some shit out kind of deal. But I think this is just not the when it comes to the competition, I don't believe Brendan Allen passes the eye test well, and this was right where I thought it was going to be. Anthony Hernandez is a dude who plays with his food too. Like I don't know. I just don't see him as the type, other than Kopylov when he fucking choked him out. I don't see him finishing people right now because he just enjoys beating them up. I don't know. It just seems like that to me.
Yeah, well, and that's why. I mean, as he's going up higher, it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to continue to play that game with some of these guys that don't play that game. I mean, there's not going to be. I mean, perhaps I don't know. I mean, like this, we've seen a lot of crazy stuff at middleweight recently. It feels like middleweight is just this way wild card division a lot of the time. So, I mean, I see Anakin saying, that he thinks that Fluffy has the potential to be taking losses soon. I think that that's probably not too far off, because once you get up to the higher levels here, I just feel like there are going to be guys that are going to see through this facade that he's putting up and not allow themselves to be grinded on like this.
I think also, I don't know if you noticed in the fight, me and Toby had a discussion on the stream about it. So there was a swipe, right? Anthony Hernandez, I think it was his fight. Anthony threw a punch, but it was like an open, and he was like more knuckle area. And Brendan Allen was, talking about the eye poke, and Fluffy was contesting it. But if you look at the replay, he might have been scratched by the leather, and I'm surprised we don't see that more often, or that's like a plausible excuse, because leather is not it's a very stiff material, let alone it has like ridges right where you're right where you could get punched in the eye. Like, it's crazy to me that that's not a more plausible excuse, but it was a legal fucking punch at the end of the day. Like, I mean, you got punched in the eye with an open kind of palm kind of deal. Brendan Allen, don't bitch out now, brother. You were losing still. And then you got to the fucking decision and you wanted to be mad about it. Like, did you think you won? Like, oh my God. Dude's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that is a good point about the that punch being legal, that shot being legal. Yeah, I mean that will happen. That's just kind of a part of the game. What I'd said about that on the watch along was that I don't think that was handled poorly. In the moment, Beltran was the referee, I believe. I think he went right to the replay, or he got the cage side officiating staff to clarify what it was, and action was resumed immediately. That'll happen. It's a fight game. Those kinds of things happen. I think that was pretty okay. But what you were saying about the second point of Allen being a little bit upset about losing this fight, I mean, yeah, bro, you got to know that those the last 2 rounds there are not yours.
Yeah, and I feel like we talk about this before, self-awareness in any sport. Like, you got to just know your role. Like, you're not the dude that can just talk shit to DDP, but then get beat up by Marvin Vittori at the bar and then lose, to unanimous decision to Fluffy. It's like, you're not backing up what you're selling us. Like, Brendan Allen, I know I'm your number one hater, but like, you got to at least have somebody buy into the story. You can't listen, take your losses like a champ. Don't be mad, throw a fit. I know that's not exactly what you did, but dog, no way you thought you won after 10 minutes on your back. Seriously. It's ridiculous.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I see the criticisms that you have of him. Like, I think that there's validity in some respects, and those kinds of things certainly don't help that assessment. So yeah, I mean, really it's back to the drawing board for Allen. And I mean, these losses are starting to creep up on him a little bit. So, being a middle of the pack guy might just be where he ends up. And that is just going to have to be okay, I think,
Listen, I've been saying it for a while. He's the new age Paul Craig. I mean, I ain't got no problem with it. Listen, just do what you got to do, Brendan. Get your paycheck, man.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see what happens with Fluffy going up against some of these more elite guys going forward, because it's going to be the time for that now.
Especially if Brendan Allen's paying for all the seats for his kids. I was actually thinking at the time, if he how many kids are he actually going to get the footprint tatted up? Like, if he has 9 kids, he's going to go all the way around. But like, that's a lot of tickets to buy, because he ensures that they get front row fucking seats to him losing. I don't know why, but
yeah, I talked about my mixed feelings on having the kids at the fight in general, but that is a good point. He's going to have tracks going across his entire body. It's going to be a well-worn torso there.
Hell yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to this main event, because I know that we probably both have a lot to say about it, and we've been going super long tonight. So let's
I don't know if I have a lot to say about it, to be honest, but go ahead and introduce this real quick.
I say I'll talk about a ton in your stead then. This is Henry Cejudo versus Song Yadong, main event of UFC Seattle, which we've been talking about tonight. Yeah, well, why don't you go ahead and start it? I will, we'll talk about the fight itself first a little bit, and then I want to talk about the finish, obviously.
Yeah. So the fight itself, me and Henry sometimes we'll sit there and we get it's like the first 10 seconds, you can normally tell, is there going to be a finish or what's going on? Not submissions, of course, but like between the striking. And in this one, I just had the feeling that these dudes weren't going to finish each other. I don't know what was giving me that. I mean, looking at the striking, they were very inaccurate. Holy shit. But it just didn't feel like they were not that they weren't going to go for it, but they weren't going to solve the puzzle. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I was feeling. I feel there just wasn't much by the end of the fight. Like, I feel like I even watch Song and Henry fight? Like, they didn't really do much, in my opinion, that had me thinking like, oh, somebody's on the ropes. I will say Henry Cejudo shot 3 takedowns. I won't say a bunch. Shot 3 takedowns, missed all of them. So that's about the Olympic medalist of wrestling can't fucking just take down Song Yadong of China. So I don't know. I mean, This one is just a wipe slate. Will they rematch? God, I hope not. But yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Dana certainly didn't seem like he wanted it. But yeah, let me add some thoughts to what you were saying here to build on that. So, I thought that when, especially when you were talking about the striking numbers, I think that the big issue here was that I kind of liked Henry's strategy early in the first round. I thought he was feinting a lot. That's where the lack of accuracy comes from, I think, because a lot of times they were just throwing out little like check shots just to, put something out there, try to catch each other off guard. Henry way more so than Song. He was really trying to bait Song in and moving around a lot, which I was like, this is not a bad opening salvo to me. Like I was like, this I think can work if it goes later into the rounds. So I was okay with Henry's strategy starting this thing out. The thing I noticed in that first round, though, was that Song was not biting on anything. And that started to become very apparent in the second round, because once Song essentially got the timing down, realized that all of these feints were not leading to the power or to the takedowns or whatever the second part of the game plan was, I think that his confidence really started to build up, even more so than it was already in the first round. Because I think that he, like I said, nothing was really phasing him in that first round. And by the second round, it was completely, he was locked in. I mean, like, there was nothing that was really getting in his way. So he was having some good success when he finally did let his hands go. Henry had a couple good shots there of his own as the fight progressed, but my point is that it wasn't a completely one-sided fight, but like it was a strategic fight earlier that I think was starting to trend towards Song's direction before what inevitably happened as the finishing sequence went. Close before the finishing sequence, but Song was just a step ahead in the exchanges, and it was building up over the course of the fight. And then, of course, the eye poke happened. And do you have anything to say about this? Because I've got a wall of text that I can get through. So go for it.
Let me add before. I do remember that Henry had very good success with the 1-2. He was popping the jab and throwing the straight right after it. And he was catching Song not off guard, but he was just, listen, we talk about textbook, but Henry was doing a very good job popping the 1-2, but he stopped doing it. And it wasn't like I was watching him do it, and I remember saying, like, oh my God, he's having really good success. Like, he needs to just blast it, just like keep blast. And he just like stopped. And then he would like shoot for a fucking dumbass takedown. I don't like it was hard to watch this performance. But then yes, he ended up taking a double eye poke, and then I will let you get into your spiel.
Okay, so let me clear my throat for this one here. Double eye poke, as you said. One eye took it worse than the other. Henry can't see out of his left eye. We all saw how deep it went into the eye. It was a pretty bad poke. There was blood coming out of the socket. It wasn't good, right? So we can at least acknowledge that part of it. After the fight, we would find out that Cejudo suffered from diplopia, which is the technical term for double vision, soft tissue damage, and a corneal abrasion. So this was not just your average run-of-the-mill eye poke. I just want to put that out at the outset of all of this, because a lot of people were saying Henry was taking the easy way out. The next note is that Henry did himself zero favors by sitting down and mugging to the crowd. Why the fuck he thought that was a smart thing to do, or like a sound thing to do in that in that sequence is so far beyond me. But that was an asinine move from an often asinine man. Henry does himself no favors often in life. This is another example of that. So just putting that out there for anybody who thought that this was like, oh, Henry taking the easy way out. It was a bad eye poke. So just acknowledge that aspect of it, right? That part of it does not bother me. What bothers me is that generally the referee does not want to be part of the story, as Brendan Fitzgerald said in the commentary. But in this case, it felt like Herzog directly inserted himself into the story. Why? So, I mean, like, the doctor is called in at one point, I guess, just to give Herzog a towel, but didn't do the test at that point. I don't know why he didn't, like, do the eye test when he was already in the cage. That's part one. Song they finally call the action back in. Song immediately starts to lead with his fingers again, which why he didn't get another warning for that, also a little bit strange, but put that part to the side too, I guess. Just another element to all of it. Not great, but it goes back. They get to the end of the round. Henry is certainly out of it. He immediately is telling everybody and anyone who will listen, I can't see. I can't see. I'm like, okay, this is definitely getting stopped. He's yelling at the top of his lungs that he can't see. The doctor is called in, but does not recommend the stop per se. Herzog goes out of his way to make sure that the fourth round starts so that the fight does not go down as a no contest. Instead, it goes to the scorecards because of that. Why is that okay? I'm going to be listening to Fight Show tomorrow. Shout out to the Fight Show guys. Bill Buckwalter is a former UFC referee who is a co-host of that show. I'm going to be tuning in and listening to what he has to say about this, because it is flooring to me that this was the set of circumstances. We've seen fights get stopped in between rounds all the time. This is not an uncommon occurrence for the fight to get stopped on the stool. Why Herzog had the logic to stop this thing after starting the fourth round intentionally, I just don't get how this set of sequences is okay. I don't understand this at all.
I think to note, Song leading with his fingers immediately after was crazy. Like, I was screaming, what are you, like, fingers, and then Henry did it again, having a good time, taking the full allotted 5 minutes, which I don't know if is true, but I believe that might be the first that I've seen the full 5 minutes, or at least, within the first, the last 20 seconds, even the last minute,
Right.
Song coming back, leading with his fingers, Henry evading for the entirety of that last minute and a half, because he obviously is unable to see, which I found also insane that he had to say multiple times, I cannot see. He's joking with Herzog, like, I'm good. Like, I want to fight, but like, I can't see. And it's like, and then the round stops and he's like, yeah, I can't see. And somebody made a note that the ref actually brought over like a bar napkin, like it wasn't actually like a towel, like they have the screen, it's like a bar napkin that he gave him to like wipe his eye. And then you pointed out that Herzog wanted to insert himself in the story. Dude, the way you said that, so it first goes back to where he's yelling at the doctor, he's like, doctor, get back, right. And he waves him back in there. And then he's like, no, we're gonna go to the fourth round, and then do the whole thing. And then I don't know if you caught this part, because this is what stuck out to me when you said that. He even told Bruce Buffer what he was going to say.
Right. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, you're going to say, this is what you say, blah, 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 blah. It's like, how much more dictation can you possibly be doing as a referee? And so I also, I didn't mention this, but I did want to cap this on. Herzog, at least his explanation of it in the moment, because I'm sure that you saw he was explaining it to Uriah Faber and Song Yadong's corner there, telling them what his logic was. And what he had said was that if it had stopped before the fourth round, this is by the letter of the unified rules, but if he had stopped it before the fourth round, he would have had to have taken a point. I mean, that the taking a point part is not to the letter of the rules, but like if he had stopped it before the fourth round, it would have been a no contest, and then the point this is, I guess, where it gets a little complicated. If it stops before the fourth round, it then does not go to the judges' scorecards, and then a point deduction could have made it be a tie. I mean, like the whole thing gets a little bit strange, but this is at least what he's saying, is that if I stop it now, it's going to go, we're not going to get to the judges' scorecards. Again, why is that your call to make? Like, I mean, if he's telling you can't see, then you stop it when it's appropriate to stop it. Like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I thought that part was just very weird. If it's warranted to stop the fight, you stop it then. If you want to take the point, then you take the point. But like, I don't understand this whole like negotiating essentially through all of this and like talking everybody through, dictating what's going on as the referee. I mean, I understand that you're there to keep order and everything, but like you really like took over front and center in this situation, and it just seemed very strange to me.
I think what's possible, and I'm making a wild assumption here, because how often do we not see something on camera? But Henry, with the attitude that he had at the time, did seem like you brought up, wanted the easy way out. And if that's what you want to believe. What the context I believe that I was going with is that Henry was pulling a card that he knew once it got to the fourth round, it's going to go to decision. If it's at the third round, it has to be stopped. So he got all the way to the bell in his mind thinking, I won 2 rounds. And then he wants it to go to decision. So maybe he's pulling Herzog's pocket and he's like, you got to go. I made it out the third round. Start the fourth round. We're going to go to decision. And so maybe we didn't see that side of it. I don't believe so. But in the moment, it did seem like Henry thought he was going to win a decision if the fight got stopped. That's just my opinion.
And I mean, Dana did say that, in his assessment in the post-fight press conference. So, I mean, I guess that there is some potential validity to that line of thinking. I can't ever even begin to know what's going on in Henry Cejudo's massive cranium. That guy is, his whole persona is just predicated on bad takes and bad decision making often, which is very odd because sometimes he actually comes out with a really banger take and it's like, wow, where is this coming from a guy who's so far off most of the time? So I don't know if it was gamesmanship. I don't know what was going through his mind with all of that. He did take a bad eye poke. You can't take that part away from it. They say they want to run it back, whatever. I don't think anybody really cares about that aspect of it, but I'm very floored by Herzog's conducting of himself in this set of circumstances, because it really felt like he took the front and center role in all of this. And you could see, I mean, like, look, Jason Herzog is often, I mean, at least in, before the Jared Cannonier versus Nasruddin Imavov fight, which was stopped early, prior to that, he's one of the guys that most people would say is like the best referee that we had. So to see him going in there and kind of being like the conductor of all of this, like you could tell that he's very confident in the way that he commands his presence as a referee and like takes his job very seriously. It just seemed very out of place for him or any referee to have been doing what he was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other ref, listen, any other ref, if they're at 4 minutes and 30 seconds of the timer and they're joking around and they still can't see if that's the actual reality, whether they're whatever character they're playing, if they can't see and they're telling you can't see, instant wave off. Like, what are you talking about, doctor? Come in. He's telling you that
Right.
he is unable to see you in front of him. So
yeah, no, exactly. Absolutely. So yeah, this whole ending sequence, I'm very interested to hear what Bill Buckwalter has to say about all of this. And hopefully we get some further clarification, because it just seemed very, very odd and an unfortunate end to what was a really solid card overall. I mean, really, I mean, I kind of made that joke in the beginning of the episode here about, it kind of starting off really like amazing and then sort of petering off. But to be fair, I mean, like really, it had this fight been just a regular run of the mill fight, even if it wasn't the greatest fireworks display of all time, this would have been just like a really, really solid fight night card. And to have it end in this very unceremonious way with so much odd interference on top of it just was, I think, just very unfortunate.
I think what's also unfortunate, and I've brought it up before, is that ESPN Plus does not make the fight nights accessible. You can't, other than going through a whole wormhole to find them. And I don't even think that's possible to a certain extent after a certain date. But it's cards like these, we talk about Apex 100, whatever you want to, any other ones you want to throw out there. It's like,
and Macau.
These are going to just fall under the radar for a lot of people who weren't here to witness 7 for 7 finishes on the prelims. Like, and that's another thing, is like, it that part of it, it's the prelims that people aren't going to go back and watch the prelims of Fight Night Seattle. It's like, if you're not here, you kind of missed out. If you know kind of deal.
Yeah, make sure you invest in Fight Pass for that exact reason if you're starting to get more interested in the sport. But yeah, so I mean, I guess that's about it for UFC Seattle, as we've been talking our way through it. Final thoughts on this card?
Had a lot more to say, I guess, than I figured the time of the fights would entail. But yeah, I feel like I got everything out. I always love getting on here on Mondays because, after Sunday I let it stew, and then Monday I try to get all my thoughts, calculated, and then finally being able to just rant about all these fighters. It's really it's fun. I love it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it as well. We have been going super long. I don't want to keep it going too much longer, but do want to at least just take a very quick look at next week, as we often do. So next, or this coming week, rather, this week. This next upcoming event is UFC Fight Night, Kape versus Almabayev, taking place at the Apex. Anything specific you're Sue Almabayev coming in on short notice here in the main event?
Yeah, what I'm thinking is that there are plenty of good dogs on this card. You know, I know we'll go from let me see, like Hyder Emil is a plus 160, which is pretty crazy against William Gomi. I think that is insanity if you
Oh
want to
yeah.
go. You know, at the time, Esteban Ribovics, he was the underdog against Hackparas, Nasrat Hackparas, but that's another crazy story for another day, I guess. Let me think of some other ones. Danny Silva and Lucas Almeida. Lucas Almeida, if you remember, that guy was really fucking impressive in his last fight. Danny Silva is a Contender Series guy that I'm actually a really big fan of, but once I saw the dude that he was going up against, that's a pretty scary one. Thinking about Lucas Almeida as the dog is pretty good. And then, of course, going to the first fight of the night, the underdog, the actual dog himself, Charles Johnson, plus
Ooh, going up,
105.
yeah, going up against Timarov, man, that's gonna be a great fight. That's a
I'm
really good
excited.
fight to start this thing off.
I'm very excited for this. I think Charles Johnson is just the guy that can fucking derail another hype train. Like Tamirov one is not Josh Fan. He's got a little more power, but he doesn't have the volume. And Charles Johnson was able to go to war and was able to weather the storm and finish it. Tamirov might be another dude who's just a striker that's gonna get, you know, and we always talk about these styles make matchups. You know, what does the matchmakers think? It's like they just know Charles Johnson's going to go out here and bang with a dude who's ready to knock some dudes out. And Charles Johnson is just the dude who might be able to get it done. I'm 5'4" versus 5'9". Oh, we got this, boys. Another 5'4" dude that Charles Johnson can finish. I'm just saying.
Let's go. I can appreciate it. I wanted to at least touch on a couple of these as well. That one certainly, as I said, is a great fight to start this thing out. Montana De La Rosa versus Luana Carolina. I've not been super impressed with Carolina, so I mean, but De La Rosa is also kind of in that same camp. So
13-9 is crazy for being 30
yeah,
years old. That's cute to lava shit.
yeah. So I mean, but there you go. I mean, it's certainly one of those ones where I think that might also be a good dog for that exact reason. Like I said, I've not been super impressed with Carolina, so De La Rosa might be able to pull that one off, perhaps, possibly, but neither really sticking out as like super heavy. So that might be a good dog there, perhaps. We talked about Almeida versus Silva. I think that you're right on your assessment there. That could be a really good dog too. Skip over Aldrich and Lee. Nothing really doing.
Chepe, I forgot about him. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
on the.
Chepe Mariscal. That's the other one I wanted to talk about. Of course, going up against Ricardo Ramos, who I mean,
That
Ricardo
dude got knocked
Ramos.
out by fucking Josh Van. Chepe's gonna murder him probably. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the bigger favorites on the card. I think that that's probably a lock for Chepe. I mean, he's been on such a tear lately himself that, Machine Gun is about to catch another body, but
I
could
may be
potentially be a
wrong.
banger.
I want to correct myself. I'm sorry. I may be wrong. This dude just maybe looks like a flyweight that Josh Van knocked out. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
That
Oh,
doesn't
no.
make
Yeah.
sense. Yeah,
He's,
he's featherweight.
and he's the dude who he got a win over Kulabau, but Kulabau fought like a moron in that fight, if you
Yeah.
recall. So that could be a little bit closer, perhaps, than expected. But I still think Chepe is going to be able to murk him.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
yeah, and then Danny Barlow. We've talked about him a little bit on the show. I haven't been super impressed with him, but Sam Patterson is not really that. You know what I mean? Like, this is just kind of an okay fight to me, but could possibly be decent dog there as well. Maybe. I mean, Patterson with the
I'm
submission,
not buying it.
perhaps. I don't know. I wouldn't be either, but I think there's possible potential there. I wouldn't count it out, but yeah, as you get up into these other fights here, I mean, yeah, Hyder Emil as an underdog is absolute insanity. I think that that is a really good pick right there for sure. Hyder Emil been looking really sharp lately. How they even have him as an underdog against William Gomi, who I mean, like, not Yeah, he won his last fight, but I've never really been too impressed by the guy. That's the guy that like wore himself out in the weight cut and had to get taken off that one card.
Yeah.
Yeah, so nothing really doing there. Austin Lane versus Mario Pinto, though. That's Pinto coming off the Contender Series. I think that this could be a good fight. Austin Lane, a guy who has not been super impressive, and a win over our boy Rebellis does not necessarily age all that well. So this could be a nice little show off for the Contender Series guy, 9-0. Potential good fight in that one. I do like the Rebavix fight a lot versus Hawkpross. Hawkpross is one of those dudes that I feel like flies under the radar with certain people for some reason. Like they don't really acknowledge that like he's really pretty goddamn decent. So I think that this has another banger potential in it. Rebavic's a big favorite. I think that is warranted. I do think that he should take this fight, but Hawkpross is a guy who could surprise you. So just be aware of that at least.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what the lines would open as for like knockout on each end on that one.
For sure. And then, I mean, Anakin referencing it, how the hell Cody Brundage in a co-main, like why, versus Julian Marquez. This is just an odd, it feels like we get that on Apex cards occasionally. You get these weird co-mains.
Think about this. The co-main of this card has two dudes that have more than 50% losses on their record.
That is wild. That is wild to point out. You are absolutely right. That is very crazy.
But I mean, at the end of the day, the first thing that I saw when I saw Cody Brundage, the initial thought that I said was, what does he have on Dana White? Like, what could he possibly have? Like, Jesus fucking Christ, like a co-main. Listen, main card is stretching it at this point. Co-main event, you must be on drugs, Dana. Like, does he get drunk and sign the fucking cards up? Like, I don't really know how Cody Brundage ends up here.
Yeah, it's very strange. But like I said, I feel like we occasionally will get this. It's like when anytime that we've seen Santiago Ponzinibbio in a co-main, you know what I mean? It's like it's why? Like I don't understand, but there is, I guess, some kind of logic to it. Perhaps it's just to have the ups and downs of the card, as we talk about, the roller coaster, so that you can finally get to the main event, which I do really love this fight. I'm so glad to see Asu Almabayev getting the big shot here. Will he be able to do it against Manel Kape? This is a very tough test for him. I have liked Asu Almabayev. He is a cardio machine, but so is Manel Kape. So I really do love this fight. I'm a little bit nervous for my guy Asu. I'm going to wait and see what happens on this one. I don't even know if I would really put money on this one personally. I think it's a little bit too close for my liking, but at plus 175, you could do a lot worse in Asu as a dog.
Yeah, not gonna lie, the fact that Asu got this shot over fucking Josh Van is ridiculous. Anyway, the thing that I want to know specifically, and because Manel is a little angry person, there is two Portuguese fighters on this card, him and the Mario Pinto guy from
Pinto, yeah.
I'm curious to see if he's like friendly or if he just don't give a fuck about this dude. Like I don't know. Like I'm genuinely curious to see how that plays out. I know nobody will ever ask that question, and it's like, why would they ever come into like conversation, at the same time? But it's like, I don't know. Manel's just a weird dude. I feel like he would be the type of dude to just not he's like another guy from Portugal. Why would I care? Like,
yeah, he's another guy that it's very hard to ever know what's actually going on in that head of his, because he is just he seems like a genuinely crazy person. Asu Almabayev, though, I mean, like you're saying that it's crazy that he's getting the shot over Josh Van. I mean, under the circumstances, yeah, I know that Van is a fan favorite and has been doing good things, but Asu has been crushing, bro. So I don't think it's that crazy that he's getting this shot, to be perfectly honest. I like this. I think that this is the test that he needs. And if this ends up getting him shot up into the ranking that he, in my mind, does deserve, then it's going to be a really, really nice step up for him. I'm hoping for good things from him on this one.
It's actually absolutely insane that the hype around Asu, it's just not true at all. This dude,
what?
No. Listen, I like Asu Almabayev, but if you break it down, right, compared to Josh Van, right, think about it. Asu Almabayev's had 4 fights in the UFC. 3 decisions. Like, this dude's a little merchant. Josh Van comes out here and he puts on a show and he finishes people, right?
Gets finished, though.
We don't talk about that one. He has 2 fucking losses himself, which I also wanted to bring up. Manel has 7 losses. That's a lot of losses for somebody who's just now getting to, like, contention kind of area. Maybe he was before, I get, but like still 7 losses at this point. Yo, we're getting to the area where it's like maybe you've lost too many times that like Asu Almabayev, he is next up kind of deal. I think it's a decent dog, but compared to Josh Van, 4 fights in the UFC, come on, Asu Almabayev. I think you could have slid over 1 fucking fight. Whatever. Josh Van and Tatsuro Taru can get booked immediately. Anyway, another story for another day.
Yeah, I mean, under the circumstances, I'm happy with this fight, and I am a big fan of Asu Almabayev, so I'm hoping to see him ascend to where I'm hoping he can go. Talking about the decision wins, yeah, that is true, but I mean, it's really what he does in those fights that is what makes a fan out of me. I mean, the guy is relentless with his cardio. Of course, they're fighting flyweight, so that's what it should be. But he really does bring the fight to his opponent, and we know that Kape is game as they come when it comes to that kind of thing. He's not going to back down from anything when it comes to being inside there. I mean, he fights a little bit cautiously at times. We saw that in the Mokaev fight, but like, I don't think that this is the type of fight that he's going to be able to be overly strategic and plotting and whatnot with the level of pressure that Almabayev puts on.
I hear you. It'll be an interesting one for sure because Manel is one of those wild card players where he might just come out and just like he did with Bruno Silva, where he just might spook him. Like, Asu Almabayev is still a little green in this league, not in the sport, but when it comes to the UFC, this is his first, this is big steps up right here. So this isn't CJ Vergara, so Manel Kape might be able to pull some experience out. X factor type of thing, but does Vegas know all? I don't know. I'm looking at a lot of dogs here, and I might feel really stupid if I stop trusting Vegas. That's all I'm saying. Manel, you might be on top, man.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is the outcome because, like I said, I mean, Manel he's been doing great things and he is a game fighter. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's able to do it. But we shall see. We will see all on Saturday, of course, and you can see all with both of us individually. We both do individual watch-alongs. I do mine right here on the Yama channel. That's youtube.com/@YamaShow. Yama Show on Twitch, Kick, and Trovo as well. And Chase, I know that you can tell them where they can find you.
We will be doing the watch-alongs on Saturdays whenever the UFC is popping at youtube.com/@CPSmalls. And then that should be on Twitch playing as well at Creative Play. And then, of course, on Twitter if you want to hang out with me sometimes at Creative Partin, Partin. A lot of creative stuff there.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure you follow my boy. I am at Yama Show on Instagram and Twitter as well. We, of course, will be back next Monday to talk about each and every fight from this card on last week's fights. So make sure that you catch back up with us in a week's time. If we don't see you on the watch-alongs, there is a new VOD of a stream that I did recently about Alex Pereira. Apparently, we might have some unfortunate news about 313 that has been rumored. We saw some rumor going on, hasn't been announced yet. That's speculation at the moment. Keep your eyes open for that. But I did a video about Alex Pereira going into 313 that you might find interesting on the channel. And hopefully we'll be having some new content coming out this week as well. So make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube for all of that. And until next time, everybody, we will catch up with you then. Have a great rest of your week. And most importantly, as always, fight on.
Don't worry, guys. We'll get it working for you. Don't you worry. It's going to work soon. And